Final action between the host London Beefeaters and the Saskatoon Hilltops for the Gordie Howe Bowl. It doesn't get much more Canadian than that. The winner will play the BC champion on November 16th on the West Coast for the 2019 Canadian Bowl, the 112th edition. I am John Urban, happy to take you through this semi-final competition, joined by Ron Ferwerda and the coach KJ Kedemy. And guys, the last time these two teams hooked it up was 2012. It was in Saskatoon. And it was the Hilltops prevailing 51-7. But before we get into the pregame theatrics, it looks like we're heading off to the national anthem here early from TD Stadium. It is the undefeated 8-0 Hilltops taking on the 5-2 Beefeaters in CJFL semifinal action on the other side. And welcome back to TD Stadium here on your Saturday evening for CJFL semifinal action. The winner goes off to the national championship. And for the London Beefeaters, it would be the first time in program history if they were to pull out the victory here this evening. But going up, and I'm just going to coin a phrase right out of the gate from the 16-time World Wrestling Champion Ric Flair, to be a man, Ron Ferwerda, you got to beat the man. And this is trying the 5-time, trying to make it the 6-time defending national champions. If they were to win it here in 2019, that would be 9 national championships in the last decade for the visiting Saskatoon Hilltops, which, by the way, traveled almost 2,600 kilometers away to play here in the semifinal here in London, Ron.
Yeah, there's talk about, we look at, we coined a frame called dynasty. We look at the Patriots and how they've dominated the NFL over the past 20 years, going on a fantastic run. This Saskatchewan program isn't a dynasty. This is a juggernaut, okay? This is at a different level than what we've seen at the Canadian football level. This reminds me a lot of the 70s Edmonton Eskimos or the Edmonton Oilers of the late 70s, early 80s in NHL, of just total domination of the area of the sport that they were playing.
One of the most historic junior football programs in all of the nation that originally was founded all the way back in 1921 when it was for the Saskatchewan Rugby Football Union, which unfortunately came to a conclusion during World War II. They reorganized the program in 1947, and since 1953, Saskatoon has brought home 21 national championships, the most of any junior program in Canada. As the captains meet at midfield, I'll bring in the coach KJ Kedemy before we get into theatrics here at TD Stadium with the kickoff slated for 8 p.m. Let's get to the QB comparison. Tyler Herman will go mano-a-mano with Powell. Jake Powell.
Yeah, Herman has just had a great year this year, John. 141 completions this year, 62%, 2,100 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. And that goes along with a great running game that's led by Ben Apperbrook. And then, of course, Jake Powell. Jake Powell's been a little banged up this year, but all he's done, John, is take the Beefeaters right through the playoffs, go 3-0 as their starter. Clark McCallum is down with an injury. And Powell's a guy that I've had the pleasure of coaching, and we've seen him in our junior Mustang program win championships. He's a winner.
Currently 3 degrees, feeling more like -2 and maybe more Saskatoon-like weather here in southwestern Ontario, Ron, with some of the white snowflakes finally falling down in the Forest City sky. And to that point, before we get into kickoff, what do you think the X factor is going to be? It could be the weather, but something that goes off of the stat sheet.
Well, for me, it always comes down to coaching football as long as I have. Offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships, and it always comes down to the line play, the battle in the trenches. What offensive line versus what defensive line can really open up the holes. Both these teams want to establish the runs. Both these defenses want to stop the run, and that's the key to this game.
Hilltops won the coin toss, deferred to the second half of action, meaning that Ryland Kleider will kick this one away from the 45-yard line to start the CJFL semi-final. The winner of this game plays on November 16th for the 112th edition of the Canadian Bowl against the winner of the BCFC Championship. The Saskatoon Hilltops have not lost a game since 2017. Let's eat. Beefeaters, Hilltop, semifinal action right now as the kick returner moves it past the 30-yard line, eventually nailed between the hash marks, and with 14:53 remaining in the opening quarter play, the Beefeaters offense goes to work.
Beefeaters do a good job of getting right up the field, and again, you get the ball beyond the 30-yard line, which is what you're trying to do, something old Coach Haler in Western used to say all the time with the special teams, get the ball beyond the 30-yard line, that's a plus for special teams.
Quickly, we go to the offensive starting line for the Beefeaters.
At left tackle, it's Ryan Mason. At left guard, George Pangiopoulos. At center, David Legg. The All-Canadian All-Star, Matthew Benecourt. And at right guard and at right tackle, Connor Shoebottom.
First offensive player of the game. There's 3 trips to the near side. It's a pass play. This one is caught, but only a gain of about 2 or 3 yards, as falling to make the catch was the intended receiver on this play, I believe in Bailey Holmes.
Yeah, Holmes all they're doing is trying to hit that little out pattern. John, we've done enough broadcasts. I call it the uncoverable route. When you can stick your foot in the ground and run that 3-4 yard out, it's so hard for a linebacker to come over the top and cover that.
Second down coming up here for the Beefeaters, and I like what you said there, Ron, but the wet turf really dwindled down that last play. Great protection in the pocket for the quarterback, who scrambles out of a potential sack ability, throws it to the near side. Once again, another completed pass, I believe, is that 8 or 9? Antonio Bentley, I believe, is
81.
the one. Oh, 81. So it's Daniel Jaff that actually ends up reeling it in, and we should expect that. Jaff's been their main target all season.
Yeah, Jaffe out of Western, him and Jake play together there, but they're playing for the Beefeaters this year, and Jaffe was injured for some of the season, but you see how he's come on at the end of the year and this playoff run.
So 2 plays, and they move the chains to the London Beefeaters. They're going to go to a run play here, drawn to the right side. Hilltop stuffed them down for a gain of maybe 2 or 3 yards. In on the tackle for Saskatoon was Jesse McNabb, and that will lead us in to the defensive starting lineup, on the starting line, that is, for the visiting Saskatoon Hilltops.
At boundary end, number 53, Caleb Haight. At rush end, number 65, Tristan Herring. At tackle, McNabb. And at nose, Jackson Funk.
13:05 remains in the first quarter of play. 3 targets to the near side for the quarterback in Powell. Powell's going to release it. Intercepted by the Hilltops at midfield. Coming back the other way with a head of steam is Bailey Taylor. Bailey Taylor with the interception early. Jake Powell's going to regret that one unless, well, I should say just 3 minutes and 9 seconds into this game, we get a turnover. 2 minutes and 9 seconds, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, again, he just steps in front of the route. He's just trying to do the same pattern that they did last time. He's trying to do a sit-down route on the outside, try to push it upfield a little bit too far, a little bit too short for the one, a little bit too far for the other, and just no man's land.
Jake Powell completed the first 2 passes of the game, but the third time is an interception. This is a completed pass by Tyler Herman, and it looks like first down yardage gained from Keegan Dix.
So all you're doing is just getting a swing up there. All you're doing is basically it's a step off screen, like we like to do it. They're swinging the H out to the field side, to the boundary side. You get a 4-by-1 look to the other side and just outnumber them at the point.
Leads us quickly into the starting offensive line for the Saskatoon Hilltops.
At left tackle, number 71, Chisholm. At right tackle, number 73, Oches. At guard, Elderin. Arno at center, and Kowalski at left guard.
Tyler Herman pump fakes this one, has a man deep, decides to go shallow. There's a flag on this play with 12:04 remaining on the first quarter clock.
I think we're going to get an offside on the Beefeaters on the far side of the field, but great pressure up front. The Beefeaters showing a lot of pressure early in this game. What they're trying to do is take it, like we talked about, they want to take away the run, make Saskatoon kind of a one-dimensional in the cold, wet weather tonight, John.
And we will quickly introduce the starting defensive line for the home London Beefeaters.
At nose, Tyrell Pierce. At tackle, Soren Halschmidt. at defensive end, Dan Skutta, and at defensive end, rush defensive end, Martin Ortega.
So the 5-yard penalty goes against the Beefeaters. It's a 1st and 5 now for Saskatoon, who hasn't lost a game of any kind since the mid-2017 PFC season when they lost 29-26 to the Regina Thunder. This one is a run play to the right side. The Beefeaters gobble it all up, though. I believe that might have been Claytor on the carry.
Yeah, again, what they're trying to do is just get this outside zone play. Right there, you see a great job of the Beefeaters penetrating, closing everything down, setting the edge, and forcing them back into the middle for help.
And I beg your pardon, that, of course, is their bell cow, Ben Abrook. 2 touchdowns, 246 rushing yards, and a record 44 carries in that PFC championship, the 6th in a row for Saskatoon in that 30-14 final over the Edmonton Huskies. Now they're going to run it through Abrook to the near edge, and the defense steps it up huge here, KJ Kedemy, as it'll bring up a 3rd down, and this is exactly what the Beefeaters defense ordered.
Yeah, Cody McRobbins that time coming from his defensive back position. What they're doing, I talked to Tim Thompson before the game. John, they're playing cover 0. They realize this guy's a difference maker. 44 carries last week. They're not going to let them. You're going to have to beat them throwing the ball through the air, but Herman can do that, so it's going to be an interesting tail of the tape.
This is going to lead to Rylan Claytor coming out to attempt a field goal. Now, during the PFC playoffs, he went a perfect 4 for 4, including 3 for 3 in the championship, hitting from 14, 27, and 34. This would be a 33-yard field goal attempt from the near hash mark with 11 minutes remaining here in the opening quarter of play in the CJFL semifinal competition. The snap and the hold is good. It's a fake, though. They run it right up the middle. Now, they only needed a handful of yards, and I believe they got a fistful, KJ Kedemy. They're moving the chains.
Yeah, and that first scoring opportunity by the German-Canadian club sponsored by, they fake it, and what a great call on the road. You know, you're in a different environment, and man, that's something that I wasn't expecting. Great play call and a big first down.
And the fake puts them right on the doorstep of the red zone with the ball at the 21-yard line. Still scoreless here from TD Stadium on your Saturday evening. The snow and the rain, for that matter, has seemed to have dissipated. Slight wind coming from the southwestern direction. Tyler Herman gonna air this one out. Has a man deep, just out of the outstretched fingertips, but you like that play, Ron?
Yeah, I do. This is a really hard pattern to stop. You're getting a 3-by-2 set. You've got a receiver running a fade or a corner route from the inside slot position. Great coverage downfield across the board from the Beefeaters.
They've been using Ben Abrook, their running back, and why not? 4 touchdowns over the postseason. But you mentioned it during the regular season, KJ. They were more of an aerial assault team.
Yeah, they have 3 receivers, John, with over 30 catches, which is unheard of in junior football. And they all have high averages per catch.
Brings up a 2nd and 10. Quads to the right side and an empty backfield now for Herman as he triple pump fakes. Throws this one near. A chance for an interception. Instead, it's an incomplete pass. 3rd down.
Okay, again, we were talking about Tim Thompson about playing 0 coverage and everything. This is something that we were kind of looking forward to, is what kind of matchup would the defensive backs for the Beefeaters have. So far, plus the defensive backs for the Beefeaters, they're not allowing these big Saskatchewan receivers to get downfield and get open.
And it was a big interception early on the 3rd attempted pass of the game from quarterback Jake Powell, intercepted by Bailey Taylor. That has set up the Hilltops on this drive, and it's a fake field goal attempt from just outside the red zone that kept it motoring. But once again, 3rd down comes up, and this will turn into a 28-yard attempt from Claytor, who again was 4 for 4, perfect in the PFC playoffs. As again, this is a special teams team. The snap and the hold is good. The kick is up, and this one goes right through the uprights. And to add to it, KJ Kedemy, with 9:36 remaining in the opening quarter of play, plenty of muscle underneath that one. He could easily hit from another 20 yards plus out.
Yeah, and the kicker this year for the Hilltops,
Ryan Claytor.
Yeah, Ryan Claytor, just a star. I mean, punting-wise, 15 for 36.7. That's a huge average. But field goal attempts this year, 22 out of 26, John, 80% split. But I will say this one. I want to forget this. Jake Powell last week on the first drive threw an interception. The Beefs won that game. But this is a different opponent.
And the quarterback Tyler Herman for the Saskatoon Hilltops threw 2 interceptions and just 1 touchdown in the championship dance. In fact, threw an interception in the semifinals as well, Ron. So with the wet conditions, we know that the ground attack could potentially be limited as a result, but we see the both quarterbacks a potential interception risk, though, as well.
Well, again, both teams have kind of come out and said, we know you want to stop the run. Let's kind of throw the ball a little bit, see if we can loosen up the defense as we see the kickoff here going deep, picked at the 10-yard line.
Yeah, the Beefeaters trying to retrieve it. They got up near the 30-yard line on their last kick return, and pretty much the same vicinity on this one with 9:30 remaining here in the opening quarter of play. A 3-0 scoreboard, courtesy of a 7-yard field goal made by Ryan Claytor to start off this contest.
It was Danny Bryan on the return there, Jay and Johnny. Again, good job. Gets it, again, like we said earlier, anytime you can start with your offense on the plus side of 30, that's a win for special teams. So again, let's see what the Beefeaters can do, get a little drive going here.
Yes, this their second offensive drive of the game, their last drive ending in that interception procured by Bailey Taylor. This run play, though, will skip to the 40, and I believe one play, and they may have moved the chains. If not, they're shy by inches.
Well, this is a young man that we've said a name a lot over the last little while. We call him the Tasmanian Devil, Tazi Vang Bell, just pushing the outside zone play. He's a small, really explosive running back. Not a lot of power to him, but he's got a great first step, gain of 9 yards on that.
And he has that ability as Powell's going to get this on the keep, takes a hit to make the play. In fact, I thought they were going to mark down his forward progression, and Coach Kedemy, you saw something on that last play. I saw a potential German suplex coming up.
Well, it was number 50, Brandon Gallant, in at quarterback. It's their, I don't know what you want to call it. It's your fridge formation, and he's at quarterback. And he's what's that?
Number 80.
No, it's 50 actually. It's Brandon Gallant. They bring him in they did it last week as well. So
either way, they able to move the chains, though, with 8:15 now remaining on the clock. Powell's going to hand this one off. Do we get another dose of the Tasmanian Devil? Either way, it's a gain of no yards on this affair to bring up second down with 8 minutes remaining now in the first quarter of play.
There you see, it's the same play to the left-hand side. It's basically that zone play. Tazi Vang Bell is a one-cut and go the distance type of kid, but the Hilltops do a good job of not allowing the cutback lane up there. They're filling all the gaps, forcing him back inside for help.
In the OFC Championship game, touchdowns were provided by Taz Vang Bell, Daniel Jaffe, Cody Roberts on a block kick, and Brendan Gallant. As this pass is in and out of the hands, it'll bring up third down, and wanting that back will surely be Taz Vang Bell.
Yeah, again, they're just trying to hit a little swing pass out here. Does a good job. You can kind of see what the Beefeaters are trying to do. They're trying to roll away from that pressure, get the ball into the flats a little bit. That seems to be the passing plan so far in the game.
It'll send out Will Corcoran to punt this one away. And Coach Kedemy, you're down by 3. You limited the Hilltops on their previous drive just to that Clyder field goal, but is it imperative that your defense stands tall on this next drive coming up for the visitors from over 2,500 kilometers to the west?
it really does, and like Ron said, special teams is going to be huge. This is where the Hilltops, I think, separate themselves from most teams.
So 3rd and 9. It'll be a long snap to the punter. He's trying to get this one at least down to the 35. Gets it down to the 32. Retrieving it for the Hilltops. And sprinting up the far sidelines. Eventually pushed out of bounds in front of the Hilltops bench.
Yeah, it makes the first man miss out here. As you can see, when we see the punt go up there, they had good coverage downfield. He just doesn't break down. We saw that kind of that breakdown in mental responsibility right there a couple times earlier in the season, and then all of a sudden it's 15 more yards before he's pushed out of bounds. Saskatoon's got the ball at the 50-yard line in really good field position.
If you're just joining us, thank you for joining on CJFL TV. This is the CJFL semifinal here in London, Ontario, with the London Beefeaters, the host, taking on the Saskatoon Hilltops, and the Hilltops are lucky to get maybe 1 yard on this play to the right side.
Just a power play to the to the right-hand side there, just going straight ahead. And again, Beefeaters again, led by those linebackers, Danny Fitzgerald and the rest of the crew there. They're doing a really good job of shutting the run down. If they basically are saying, if you're going to beat us, you got to beat us in the air on a cold, wet Ontario evening.
6:26 now remains on the first quarter clock here from TD Stadium on your Saturday evening. Weapons split evenly as 2 run to the line. Plenty of options to the left side. Herman pump fakes. Airs this one deep. It is caught almost in triple coverage all the way down to the 26-yard line. That's Ryland Claytor. This kid can do it all.
Well, what they're doing there, they got that swing pattern going to the 3-by-1 side. So you got one-on-one coverage on the backside. And again, we've said the Beefeaters are playing zero safety. That time, instead of blocking, he just runs a seam play. Everybody identifies it, but they're just a half a step behind.
And again, I think back to that PFC championship game. Claytor went 3 for 3 on the field goals as they won their 6th straight PFC championship. But I forgot, oh yeah, he's a receiver and can do things like that too. As we get quads to the right side, but they're going to hand this one off right up the middle and gain a plethora of yards. They'll be shy of the first down. Or no, they're going to say he had 11 yards and move the chains here, Ron?
Yeah, straight ahead ISO playing here. You can see the 4 receivers to the top of the field. So again, they've got numbers inside the box there, and it just makes the first man miss. Gain of about 12 yards on that.
One official said it was down at the 11, which would have been a first down, but they mark it back at the 14. So now it's 2nd and shy coming up now with just about 5 minutes remaining here in the opening quarter of play. They're going to go back to the ground attack, and why not? It's the guy that got the ball 44 times, a record breaking in the PFC Championship. It's Ben Abrook.
Well, it seems to be the exact same play that they've run a couple times in there. Just that straight ahead, almost like an inside zone or a zipper play or almost like an ISO. You're just going right through the A gap on the short side of the field, and they're getting 5-6 yards a carry. Hate to be a naysayer, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. I come back to it again and again and again.
Only 87 points given up over the last 9 games, including the postseason for the Beefeaters, but they need to bend and not break here, as again it's a run up the gut and a gain of maybe 2 or 3 yards for the Hilltops to bring up 2nd and goal as they're within the red zone with 4:30 remaining on the first quarter clock.
That time the defensive line does a good job of getting off their blocks, forcing inside, not allowing the line to get to the linebackers. Linebackers clean it up after a short gain.
As again, you think back to that semifinal, the OFC semifinal. London trailed in that game 6-0 at halftime, but came back to beat Hamilton at the end of the day, 17-8. As this one will be untouched and into the end zone, a touchdown. But more flags than a UN meeting might be bringing this one back.
I'm not sure what the flag is, but the Beefeaters had somebody in the backfield right away here. Oh, on the far side it looks like, and again, the Beefeaters just missed the tackle. Touchdown was good, so they called the Beefeaters on the offside.
So the touchdown is good, and for the Hilltops, with 3:54 remaining here in the opening quarter of play, it's 9-0, waiting for Ryan Claytor, who's already made a field goal in this game, to make the PAT to extend it to a 10-0 game. The snap and the hold is good, and the kick is through, and just like that, KJ Academy, 10-0. Take me through that last drive by the Hilltops. It was really Claytor catching the ball deep in Beefeaters territory that set himself up, well, let's say to kick the PAT after the touchdown.
That Barron Championship Rings Drive brought to you by one of the CGFL sponsors. And like you said, John, like Ron said, they faked the bubble screen and they hit that seam route. And that was the play that Ron, I think, set this up. But again, then they got to what they're really good at doing, which is running the football.
Yeah, again, running the football, using your offensive line, which is a big physical offensive line, Jay. We saw these guys coming out, and we were both going, wow, this is the size of a university team, not just necessarily a CJFL team. And again, it's what we talked about earlier in the game as well, was the Beefeaters really selling out, committing to stop the run. They had an opportunity to stop in the backfield, missed tackle, gets to the edge, all of a sudden, 10-0. If I'm the Beefeaters, I got to tell my guys, settle down, relax, we're in a game, let's get going.
And who else? He had 153 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in the semifinal, and then 246 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in the PFC final. It's Ben Abrook getting the touchdown there for the Hilltops, as once again, for pretty much the 3rd straight time, the Beefeaters are stuck between the 20 and the 30-yard line on the kick returns to send their offense back out there.
Well,
KJ.
this time a little bit better coverage. Sorry about that. A little bit better coverage by the special teams, keeping them inside the 30 there. That was Bailey Taylor on the return.
Yeah, John, like you said, this is just, the Beefs have to stick with their game plan, but they got to get some offensive first downs and points.
And again, in that Ted Morris Memorial Trophy winning day in Windsor against the AKO Fratman, Jake Powell trying to go deep, does have a man, and it's caught, eventually hauled down at the 46-yard line, the first big offensive play of the day. Let's eat for the Beefeaters.
Yeah, just a step. Spencer Foster, he's just running a seam pattern. Again, really hard position, and again, both teams are selling out to stop the run, and again, because they both have really dynamic offenses, both dynamic running backs. what I've really been impressed with is the Beefeaters are allowing Jake Powell time to scan the field and throw.
Great protection by the lineman. 2 will run to the line. 3 targets to the near side. Looks like this is a handoff, but not biting on it are the Hilltops, but the running back does an immaculate job to fight his way up, and Danny Byron for about a 2-yard gain. He was stuck in the backfield there, KJ.
Yeah, number 69, Jesse McNabb, looked like he had him, but just a will, he willed himself to those 2 yards.
That previous play, by the way, by Spencer Foster gets the Beefeaters for the first time on your Saturday evening into Hilltop territory here with 2:30 remaining. Quads now to the right side. Powell rolls out to the right side, fires it down, has to be careful. The same gentleman in Bailey Taylor that intercepted from Jake Powell earlier this game was in the vicinity. Flag on this play.
Yeah, there's a flag on the play. I think you're going to get an unnecessary roughness, late hit on a quarterback here. And again, but what we also saw was on the backside, what they're doing is they're trying to get an overload look, or almost like a flood look for the Beefeaters, trying to get them over the commit. But that backside seam from the wide receiver is going to be wide open at some point in this game. I'm just saying.
And you nailed the call. It is roughing the passer. It's a 15-yard penalty. It'll give the Beefeaters a 1st and 10 as they go closer and closer towards that end zone for the first time on your Saturday evening with the ball at Saskatoon's 30-yard line. 2:15 now remains in the opening quarter. Down 10-0 thanks to a Kleider field goal and a Ben Abrook rushing touchdown. They're going to hand this one off. Danny Byron trying again, fighting for a little bit of something out of nothing. Now, in 4-down football, you don't mind this, KJ Academy, but in 3-down football, you need a little more gusto out of the rush, although they credit him with 5 yards on this last play.
Yeah, just again, another will run where you just don't give up and keep moving your feet. And the interesting thing is they're running the ball inside right now, and they're not running the ball outside with that threat of Tazzy Van Bell. Wondering when they're going to go to that option.
Last game of the OFC regular season for Beefeaters was a forfeit. The Niagara Raiders forfeited their game on October 6th, and I'm wondering if that plays a factor as they go throughout their playoff hunt, as again, this one's ran over to the left side. Again, they gained 3 or 4 yards on this play, but it's going to bring up 3rd and short. And what do you do here if you're the Beefeaters? Do you settle for the field goal and go down by a touchdown, or do you try and push the envelope a little bit here, Mr. Ferwerda?
No, I kick the field goal. There's no question right now. But you make it a 1-score game, and all of a sudden, you've got positive momentum going for your team. Now, if you're the coaches, you can go to them and say, hey, look, we just moved the ball 70 yards on these guys. We came away with points. We're in this game. Now, defense, let's make a stop and let's get back out there.
Looks like Leo Centino goes out there to try and nail this one from 30 yards out. The holder will be Mitch Spence. This is between the hash marks and should be an easy kick. The snap and the hold is good, and this one is wide right. But taking the Rouge in the end zone will be the Hilltops. So unfortunately for the London Beefeaters, Leo Centino misses wide right from the 30-yard line. Saskatoon concedes the Rouge. It's now a 10-1 game. And Saskatoon's offense goes back out there with the ball at the 35, KJ.
Yeah, that Rouge brought to you by Rosie Strudery. Basically, John, I look at the stats, and that's the problem. 2 for 6 this year on
KJ.
Yeah, that Rouge brought to you by Rosie Strudery. Basically, John, I look at the stats, and that's the problem. 2 for 6 this year on field goal attempts during the regular season.
Isn't the issue, despite the fact that
Santino didn't even try one in the regular season, and having to get the roster down to 40. Tough decision this week which kicker to use, and he misses on the first.
And the distance wasn't the issue, despite the fact that an incomplete pass. 43 seconds remains here in the first quarter of play in a 10-1 ball game.
I think it was Antonio Bennett on the coverage there. It's hard to see, this
the glare,
far.
yeah, the snow.
It's 14. It's Maboko.
Oh, okay, Maboko. Yeah,
the coverage.
The St. Joe's product. Shout out to Mo Brennan, who's a friend of mine. Great guy and everything. Probably watching this game, or it was at McMaster with watching Willie today. 2nd
and 10, 3 swag to the line, 3 targets to the right side. Once again, Herman's going to air it out, and he's got another man open. This one is caught. Stutter stepping around the 30, blowing by him, past the 20, past the 10. Touchdown, Hilltops! My word! It's from their 35-yard line all the way to Pater to 75-yard hookup for Tyler Herman and his receiver.
Again, we just
Connor Graham was on that catch, guys, and I'll tell you, this year 29 receptions, 614 yards, 21.2 average, 6 touchdowns, and make that 7 now, John.
And what an arm on Tyler Herman, though. We saw it on the previous play where it was an incomplete pass, but they're playing like chuck it up football right now. Kind of reminds me of the schoolyard days playing 500. And right now it's working for Tyler Herman and the Hilltops as the extra point is through. It extends it to a 17-1 game. And talk about a swing, talk about a momentum shift as it looked like the Beefeaters down 10-0. We're going to kick a field goal from 30 yards out between the hash marks and at least go down by 7, Ron. They don't. They miss the field goal. The Hilltops concede the Rouge to go up by 9. And then within a matter of blinking my eyes 3 times, a 75-yard hookup between Tyler Herman and his target in Connor Graham, who was a stud, as KJ referred to during the regular season for the Hilltops. And just like this, it's a 17-1 ball game in the first quarter.
Yeah, and again, it's really establishing, saying, okay, if you're going to do this, we can do this for you. It's the multifaceted attack that Saskatoon has that is so hard and so dynamic in the Canadian game. If you can run the ball and you can stretch it vertically, man, it's one of those things you got to pick your poison.
In 2012, the Beefeaters won their first OFC championship since their team's founding in 1975. They beat the Hamilton Hurricanes by a score of 19-16. They were rewarded for doing so by facing the Hilltops in Saskatoon in the 2012 Gordie Howe Bowl. They lost 51-7. And I thought on paper, as we see the kick return, marching past the 30, past the 35, got off a break, past the 40, through midfield, eventually will be smothered out of bounds in front of his own bench. What a return, and that's maybe just what the doctor ordered for the Beefeaters. Spencer Foster, in my opinion, with his second, if not third, big play of the game.
Yeah, Spencer Foster does a great there. There's a good job, great block. Giving the running back, giving the receiver a chance to make a decision. That's all you try to do as a blocker on that is present your backside, let him make a cut off you.
And going back to my thoughts on that 51-7 final back in 2012, I thought, okay, that's 7 years ago. Completely different teams, completely different situations, but with the score 17-1 here in the first quarter, I'm starting to feel like deja vu all over again right now, KJ Kedemi, as this run play, a pitch to the left side, will again be stymied by that white, blue, and yellow, Ukrainian-esque colors of the Hilltops.
And believe it or not, the Beefeaters have actually played a pretty good first quarter. To be very honest with you, it's just this kid, Herman, he's a player, and he's,
and
a chess match right
Bailey
now.
Taylor grabs the interception early, which I'm sure hurt Jake Powell's confidence. Then you have Kleider not only making a field goal, but then a massive catch to set up the Abrook touchdown on the following drive. And then, like I said, that 75-yard bomb. I was noticing that Herman was just beginning to just throw it deep. Like you mentioned, that one safety and sort of that empty deep ball, if you will, that availability for Saskatoon. Yeah, they limited Abrooks, who had an immaculate performance in the PFC Championship. We're talking about a record 44 carries, Ron, 246 yards and 2 touchdowns. But this is a Swiss Army knife team. If they're not going to hurt you with one weapon, they're going to pull out 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, and it's a really hard thing to defend. When you look at things and you watch film and you go, wow, we got to be able to stop the run. We got to bring our safeties up. We got to commit to stopping the run. And they've done a good job of doing that. He hasn't really gone off. He hasn't been the factor in it. It's been that deep ball, that one-on-one coverage. They've found something that they like and they're going after.
3 run to the line, 3 options to the left side. Powell throws it to the left side. Incomplete pass. On the coverage that time for the Hilltops was Riley Keaton, as with 14:50 remaining in the opening half of play, down by 16, it's the Beefeaters forced to punt it away.
The second quarter brought to you by T-Litson Sports, proud sponsor of the CJFL. And guys, it's going to be interesting because I think you've got to stick with your game plan. That's what you prepared for, and you just got to hope that they're not going to hit every single time they throw deep. But so far,
I was just going to ask you that, Coach KJ Kedemi, whether you put yourself in the cleats of Coach Jesse Maddox right now. Does the game plan change as you enter the second quarter? And you're saying, no, stick with what got you to the dance, as this punt will go all the way down to the 29-yard line. Excellent job by the cover team of the Beefeaters, not only to give the returner some yardage to make the play, but limit the damage he could have made in Brant Morrow.
That's something that we saw a lot this year. Again, seemed to be good coverage. The Beefeaters stayed disciplined that time and didn't take a no yards penalty, which we saw a lot of times, which cost them the game against Hamilton earlier in the year.
I wanted to go back to your point, though, Ron, earlier. Not a dynasty, just simply domination. This is a team that's looking for a six-peat by winning this semifinal game and advancing to play the winner of the BCFC Championship in BC on November 16th as they run this one through Abrook. Abrook goes up to the 45-yard line, and he'll move the chains with ease. But going back to my point, Ron, about this Hilltop squad, this isn't recent news. They had 2 three-peats before this, winning in 2000, 2001, and 2002. Also winning in 2010, 2011, and 2012. If they complete the six-peat at the end of this year, that will be 9 national championships in the last 10. 9 in a decade. My God.
Yeah, that's not domination again. Like I said earlier, this is a juggernaut that the Beefeaters are facing here tonight.
And once again, they're going to go to the run. And once again, Swiss cheese is the defense right now for the Beefeaters. Is going from the aerial assaults to the run game now is KJ. And it seems like anytime they guess left, you're going right. Anytime you're guessing right, they're going left.
Yeah, right now they've got the Beefs off balance, and it's just a matter of there's a player down for the Beefs, John. But I'll tell you, what the Beefeaters have to realize is that, one play at a time. That's the only way you're going to get back into this game, and just play assignment football.
And to his point, Ron, this game is still doable. 16 points and plenty of football with 13:37 remaining in the second quarter. Don't hit the panic button.
Well, we've seen games that have been like 30-6 at halftime. We kind of looked at each other and said, well, this game's kind of over. Then all of a sudden it's 32-30.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're looking around going, what happened in the quarter? So, again, in this stadium, we've seen magic happen. See if the Beefeaters can capture lightning in a bottle. They need a play. They need to stop. They need something to change the momentum to get themselves back in this game, because right now, kind of looking at the body language, the Beefeaters they don't have the same energy that they had at the start of the game.
Tevin Johnston was the banged up Beefeater at the end of that play, but did run off on his own accord, didn't just jog off, ran off, so that is a good sign. We should see him back within 3 plays of this contest if the team and the coach chooses to, as 2 will run to the line, make that 3. It's a play action. Herman has a man open, ball caught at the 35-yard line, spinning off of a couple tackles. That's Connor Graham, 20-10 end zone touchdown. Graham is second of the game. This one from 50 yards out.
I think they found their matchup that they like. So again, just a little sit-down hook route, 2 missed tackles, and then you're off to the races with no safety in the top of the field. 42 yards later.
They actually, Ron, believe it or not, on that night team drive touchdown pass there from Herman, they did play with a high safety, but he just, like you said, he's found his matchup, and this Herman guy is something else, guys.
Well, and one thing I want to stress, though, KJ, is it's a great throw by Herman and a great catch by Graham, as you see Kleider make the extra point, as now he is a perfect 3 for 3. Oh, yeah, and has added a field goal in this national semifinal game. But as you again look at that replay of the last touchdown, he makes the catch, but a couple lackluster tackle attempts brings him free for the final 20-plus yards, Ron.
Yeah, we saw this earlier in the game that we called...
it was a Pee-wee game earlier, though, that we called, Ron.
Right, but still, we saw it earlier. They look like they're playing cold.
Yeah.
And when you start playing cold...
And you got no time for rust or cold.
Yeah, you start grabbing with your hands. And in this type of weather, you're not going to make a hand tackle with the size and the speeds of the Saskatoon team. You're not going to make the hand tackle any time of the day.
Yeah, and Ron, like you said, they found their matchup, and I think it's Menifee. I didn't check it. We'll have to see on the replay. But that matchup, we'll have to keep an eye on that, because he's giving them too much of a cushion. And once he catches the football, this guy's dynamite.
Yeah, and again, it seems to be like they're probing. It's like, okay, I kind of like what Saskatoon's doing there. It's like they find something that they like, and they're gonna go after it until you can stop it.
A bit of a shorter kick is botched, and the Beefeaters will be really lucky to hop back up on this one. The official goes to the dog pile and officially marks it Beefeaters' ball, but wow, things could have really gone from bad to worse. Already down by 23 points with 13 minutes remaining in the opening half. Coach KJ Kenemy, you talked about taking it 1 play at a time. That would have been a play going against you.
Yeah, and it's like Ron said, the body language has changed. I think the Beefeaters, and I know Jesse Maddox, this guy has done such a great job turning this program around. I know, Marshall was here last year, and he's now at Western coaching the line, but Jesse has just done a great job, and I know that he's going to have something to say at halftime because they've got to pick up they're in a championship game here. It doesn't matter what the score is. Play football.
3 swag to the line, 3 weapons to the right side, throwing it over the top, in and out of hands of the intended target in Spencer Foster, who, let's face it, Foster's been key all game, but had to grab that one with 12:33 remaining here in the opening half. One thing, Ron, if you're the Beefeaters, maybe you got to rely on some of your all-stars, offensive line, and George Pangiotopoulos and Matt Benencourt. Then you think about their running back, Tazi Van Bell, Spencer Foster. Also on defense, Soren Hallschmidt and Tanner Gaskell-Caldewalder also got OFC All-Star nominations. And Danny Bryan actually had a rushing award statistically this year, and yet 1 point on the board. Quarterback flushed out of the pocket, thought about going for a slide, then takes a very awkward... I don't know if I agree with that call, but regardless, looks like the Beefeaters are going to get some free yards here.
Doesn't matter if he's giving himself up or not. The first contact, as you can see there, was to the head. That is a 15-yard penalty. They do not allow first contact to the head at any level whatsoever. 15 yards and it's going up.
And I won't dispute that, Ron, but the way he almost faked the slide at the 30, looked like he was going down. And you mentioned it, though, the original contact's to the head, so it doesn't matter. However, I mean, if the quarterback's going to run around like a bottle top, then fake that he's going to go down, but staying up, in my opinion, that's when old school football should still be a factor. As again, trips will run to the line, trips to the left side. They fake the handoff, play action. The pass is caught at the most Canadian play of the field. And great assistance, I believe, by Antonio Bentley. Just trying to make out the number of the gentleman on the near side.
It is Bentley, John.
But the receiver was Josh Whaler, but then it was Bentley that literally pushed him up the field a couple yards.
Which you're technically not allowed to do, right, Ron? Like, you're not allowed to push a ball here, but in the American game you are, but not Canadian, but they got away with it there.
Yeah, in the Canadian game it's called a tandem buck, and yes, I have been called on it, and I have lost my mind on that call.
At the 40-yard line, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
11:45 remains in this one. Motioning to the right side are the Beefeaters. This one is thrown and caught by Powell, but a fierce defensive play by the Hilltops. And man, oh man, get this kid some Gatorade. Kirk Morrow in like a missile.
This is, again, great defensive play. The speed to the wide side of the field of the Hilltops is really starting to show its evidence in here. It is what should have been a good gain on the play for 2 or 3 yards. You had your matchup, you end up losing 2-3 yards on it, and the Beefeaters are looking like they're going to punt the ball here.
No, they're
Down
going.
by 23 points with the ball at the 55-yard line. Here early in the second quarter, the Beefeaters are going to gamble for it. Powell rolling out of the pocket, looking for a man to get open. He's going to throw this one to the sidelines, over through the intended target. It's out of bounds. Incomplete pass, turnover on downs. Mitch Spence, the intended target.
Yeah, that time Jake's rolling out to his left. You can see it here. If he can just get his shoulders turned around, but he just, the great pass rush by the big D tackle, Jackson Funk, John, who's been kind of my player of the game here on the
It's time to get funky.
Yeah.
Now, again, Ron, you talk about the body language on the field. I'm starting to notice body language in the stands as some of the Beefeater fans, unfortunately, looking like they might be pulling out the old tablets early. Maybe they can pull us up on the stream, mind you. But for the Hilltop fans on the other side, standing tall like a brick wall, they're excited as the Hilltops go to work. It's a complete pass from Tyler Herman. A nice tackle by the Beefeaters, though. You need a little bit more of that. Fernando De La Rosa in on the football play.
Great open field tackle, great finish on there, driving through the tackle. That route's so hard to cover. We've talked about it ad nauseum so many times in different broadcasts. You're getting a linebacker and trying to cover in space. It's hard to do. Not only did he have great coverage, he finished that tackle.
No team in CJFL history has had a 4-peat until the Saskatoon Hilltops, who have a 5-peat. Herman trying to go deep again, and this one is caught again around the 20-yard line. Just like that, they're going to go from the 53-yard line into the Beefeaters' red zone.
They've got that matchup that they like. This is the slot receiver on the wide side of the field, running the corner route. There you see it. And again, that's what they're getting. That's what if they had on both of those other touchdowns.
Coach Kedemy, they are making it look easy. Is it easy out there, though?
No, it's not, but this Herman guy is auditioning. If I'm a U Sports guy right now, I'm trying to get this guy's number. That's all I'm going to tell you.
3 run to the line. Herman with the handoff. Abrook going right up the gut. Abrook breaking off of 1 tackle, eventually smothered at the 10. Shy of the first down, but only by a couple yards.
Just a straight-ahead dive player, that inside zone play again. This kid really runs with a lot of power. He runs with a good pad level, too. I really like how he finishes the run, but a great tackle coming across. And again, it's so hard to pick up the numbers of this angle with the field being wet and everything.
You got the grandstand lights, you got the glimmer of the rain from today, plus a little bit of snow during the pregame warm-up, as you have 3 weapons to the near side for Tyler Herman to choose from here in the red zone. Instead, it's a handoff to Abrook. Abrook to the left side, stutters back in, and he'll get up to the 6-yard line. That should be good enough for a first down to bring up 1st and goal for Saskatoon.
Dan Skuta on the tackle with Fitzgerald. And interesting decision here. Do you bury them, or do you just take the field goal and take the points?
Well, it's 1st and goal.
It's actually 1st and goal, but I'm just saying if it comes up to it,
Yeah,
what
the
do you do
Beefeaters
here?
finally put up a defensive stance. Big shout-outs to Fitzgerald, by the way, who worked with our producer, Adam Melrose, defensively to come up with a big road victory in their playoff hunt. I believe it was Friday night in Hamilton against the Junior Tiger Cats. 20-19, that sounds like a nail-biter. We'll have to talk about Melrose after the game and get the details on that one. As with 8:30 remaining, it's Saskatoon going back to work. Rylan Kleider cuts back in, avoids 1 tackle, be creamed at the 10-yard line. Another big open field tackle by the Beefeaters. This time, getting the job done is Joey Cortez.
Cortez coming up from that 2-back position. Great, that's what I've really been impressed with the Beefeaters' tackling ability. They've been a great tackling team all across. Their outside linebackers, their 2-backs, their inside linebackers. Really good job. Fundamentals there for the coaching staff.
For the most part, despite the fact that he has recorded a touchdown, they've canceled out the stud and Ben Abrook, but what they haven't been able to cancel out is the deep bombs from Tyler Herman. And let's see if he goes to a deep bomb here. He does, has a man down. And Rylan Kleider just overthrew the target, but Coach KJ Kedemy, I like that throw from Herman. Nobody's going to catch it but his receiver.
Yeah, great coverage that time, again, by Cortez and John. And the Beefeaters have ball players, especially on the defensive side. This is a huge stand. I know, they went for it in midfield, and they're going to give up 3 points, but unless they go for the touchdown here, it looks like they're huddling up. No, they got the field goal kicker out. So I think a win right now for Jesse Maddox and his football team.
Ryan Kleider gave his team a 3-0 lead early in the first quarter of play from 27 yards out. He's already 4 for 4 in the PFC Championship, 5 for 5 if you include this national semifinal. And this is a chip shot from 17 yards out in the near hash mark, and he nails it through with 7:32 remaining here in the opening half of play in the CJFL semifinal here in London. It is the Beefeaters trailing by 26 points, 27-21. Ron, it's getting to that point where I'm almost getting speechless, partner, and that's not a good sign considering we have over 2 more quarters of football left to play.
Yeah, no, again, we talked before the game, between the 3 of us going, this Saskatoon team is awfully big. We thought the speed of the Beefeaters were going to be a factor.
They have a dynasty, and they have domination, but something we've also repeated throughout time and time again, way before this game and throughout this season, was anything's possible. And anything's that got a due date on it. Everybody's got an expiry tag attached to them, whether they know it or not. And this domination eventually has to come to an end. It doesn't appear like it's going to come to an end here in southwestern Ontario, mind you, on your Saturday evening in the CJFL semifinal. But since 2017, that 29-26 loss in the mid-PFC regular season against the Regina Thunder, this has been perfection, immaculation, domination, well, all wrapped up into a dynasty, if you will, as they're going to try and get tricky with it. The ball takes a bounce at the 35-yard line, having to recover this one for the Beefeaters, and lucky to get a yard returned out of it will be Dan Skuta.
Well, again, I'm not sure if this was the design short kick or if it's, I kind of think it is, and that's, 27-1 is kind of like, okay, well, let's keep our foot on the gas, but again, you got to play the game.
But they don't want to give it to those returners from, London that
No.
has had good special team returns this year. So they're still playing the game, and you can see it. They haven't changed their game plan.
Yeah, Spencer Foster had that big kick return that got him past midfield, and he had that big reception from Jake Powell, but other than that, the Beefeaters needed a little more flicker under the offense. Powell, well protected in the pocket, underthrows the intended target at the 55-yard line, and that time, Ron, to be honest with you, if you're going to get this kind of protection, you got to hit your receiver in the chest.
Well, again, the good coverage downfield, but if he gets his eyes off the first receiver, looks to the flats on the far side, he's got, I think it was Danny Bryan who came from the flats there on the late leak out. He had 15 yards of real estate in front of him and no white jerseys.
I think back to when it was a 10-0 game after the Abrook touchdown. It was an opportunity for a 30-yard field goal for Centino as Powell's going to throw this to the near side, and that could be intercepted if they're going to say he caught it in bounds. Trying to sell the call right now is Jared Gidding. And are they going to say interception? They are. Jared Gidding grabs the INT, the second pick thrown in the game from Jake Powell. First one was intercepted by Bailey Taylor, and now Jared Gidding gets in on the action.
Seeing it live, I thought he got his feet because, again, in the Canadian game, you only need 1 foot in.
Just couldn't tell with the bench, to be honest with you, Ron, but the official was right on the spot.
Well, this is like literally, I'm sitting on the 45-yard line. It was happening right in front of me. I saw the foot drag. I thought he got it in. He did a great job of recognizing the route and jumping it there.
Not just the voice of an angel, but the eyes of one, too, as they go to the rushing play, zigzagging his way up 15-plus yards as Abrook. And now that we're seeing more and more of Ben Abrook, we're seeing how deadly he is out of the backfield.
Yeah, when you can spread the ball downfield, when you can force it downfield with a vertical passing game, and you got a dynamic back in there, and your defense is playing like this, man, oh man, this is a tough sell.
As again, with 6 minutes remaining in the second quarter of play, down by 26 points, it is the Beefeaters trying to just simply hang on right now. 3 run to the line for Saskatoon. They're going to hand this one off again to their bell cow, who's going to gain maybe 3 yards up the gut between the hash marks. And Coach KJ Kedemy, I mean, we're not normally lost for words, but I'll tell you this. When I knew that in 2012 these two teams hooked it up in Saskatoon and it was a 51-7 final, I just thought that's another area code away. That's a different, I could have a 6-year-old boy running around in this meantime, but it seems like the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're just seeing one of the great teams that you're going to get to see.
Yeah, the domination, the dynasty of the CJFL franchise known as the Saskatoon Hilltops, as their offense continues to go to work as they penetrate the red zone down to the 10-yard line to bring up first and goal. And Ron, going back to the domination quote, when they get to the national final, the domination does not stop there. Last year, they beat the Langley Rams 58-21. 2017, they beat the AKO Fratman 56-11. 2016, 37-25 was the final over the West Shore Rebels. They beat the Okanagan Sun the year before that, 38-24, and 39-14 back in 2014, again against the Langley Rams, as they have another chance for a touchdown here, and they got it! Touchdown, Tyler Herman! His third throwing touchdown of the game, this one from 10 yards out.
They've got their Huckleberry outside there, and they've gone after him 3 times. And that's the matchup.
Has to make a better... he had great coverage. I don't understand. I think right now it's like you guys said, I think it's shell shock. You're playing against a team that's executing at a very high level in bad weather. And
executing on a very high level after getting off of a plane ride from 2,600 kilometers to our west. I mean, you talk about the bus leg sometimes, Ron, for Werda, but we're talking about a team that literally traveled half a world to get here, and they are showing zero signs of rust, zero signs of being chilly. This is just domination from opening kickoff to final whistle.
Well, they play against Edmonton. They play against Winnipeg. They play against Calgary. Travel to this team, getting on a plane or long bus rides.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This is business for them. This is a business trip. It doesn't matter. So we're on a plane for 2 more hours as opposed to it. It doesn't really matter to them. What I've really been impressed with, and again, not seeing Saskatoon play before, just because, let's be realistic, they don't come around here very often.
Well, first time in 7 years, Ron.
Yeah, the precision of how they run their offense and how they run their routes, their concepts. This is a university team that they're playing right now, like that we're seeing out there.
And you
This
just
is
hate to
a
see
well-coached team.
This is a Beefeaters team that was founded in 1975, earned its first OFC championship in 2012 when they beat the Hamilton Hurricanes 1916. They advanced to play the Hilltops in Saskatoon back in 2012 for the Gordie Howe Bowl. Well, 57-1 was the final that night for the Hilltops, and currently it's 34-1, and we're not even at halftime yet here at TD, as there's a hard hit. You could hear it all the way up here in the broadcast booth, marked down at the 32-yard line of the Beefeaters. Slow to get up, and rightfully so, as the kick returner.
Yeah, again, just smacked on there. Again, Saskatoon has come to play, again, and I don't blame them. They jumped on the plane. They chartered the plane out here. I believe that they came in late Thursday, got acclimatized to the time change and everything else.
I believe Friday,
they came
actually.
in Friday, so
according
wow.
to their Instagram feed, they got on the bus. By the way, shout-outs to wherever they got chartered, because it looked like they had a private plane. They all came off wearing their fancy varsity jackets. These guys look like studs, and I've said this to you before. They got to look good to play good, and Saskatoon's doing a little bit of both right now. As Powell's back out there and completes the pass, it's a 13-yard gain, and Coach KJ Kennedy appears to be the big man in Brandon Gallant.
Yeah, the fullback, Brandon Gallant, the guy they used in that short yardage offense earlier. Watched him last week, and just a nice design play. They have the weak set to the boundary, 3 receivers, and get a guy wide open.
Sticking with you, Coach, with less than 4 minutes remaining here before halftime, down by 33. How big was it be to just get a touchdown on this drive?
Points at all, just a drive will build your confidence. And you're seeing, I'm telling you, the Beefeaters they're off. This team is really good, but the Beefeaters are a young team. This is going to be a great experience. It doesn't matter. Now what you're playing for is just, for some respect, but also to build your program, and that's what you're seeing right here. A nice little drive here with Powell finding 2 guys in the seam.
After throwing his second interception of the game, which was collected by the Hilltops' Jared Giddings, it's Powell, trying to come back with a vengeance here on this drive with back-to-back first down throws. 3 weapons to the right side. He's going to hand this one off. I believe that's Danny Bryan going up to the 45-yard line to bring up second, and we'll call it 4 with less than 3 minutes left before halftime, Ron.
Yeah, I really like the drive here. Again, let's get some positive momentum going. Like Jay was saying earlier, this is a young team. You might not win this game. Let's call the spade the spade. It's 34-1 right now, 3 minutes left, and the Beefeaters don't really seem to have the answer to stop all of them.
You got to play for respect, though, and you got to think you're playing here at home, too. You got Londoners watching you play here.
Yeah, and again, this has been a great year for these guys. Let's celebrate football, and let's go out, in style.
3 run to the line as we're under the 3-minute warning, and the quarterback gets sacked. Penetrating through the offensive line is Caleb Haight, and you just hate to see that if you're a Beefeaters fan.
Well, again, just all the time in the world. Again, great coverage downfield by Saskatoon, though. The Hilltops, just blanketing the Beefeater receivers. Nowhere for Jake Powell to throw the ball. And finally, after about 4.5, 5 seconds, the defensive line kind of got there.
Brings up 3rd and 8 and trailing by 33 points with 2:35 remaining here in the second quarter. The Beefeaters are going to gamble for it again. 0 for 1 on 3rd down converts. Powell rolling out of the pocket. Does have a man open. Was he able to catch it according to the official?
Yep.
They are going to say he did, and he moves the chains. Wow, well.
He did catch it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
It's a great catch, John. Unbelievable body position change. Kind of like an Edelman-type catch there.
Well, again, just that kind of flood concept. You've got the over and the under going on with the double outs here. So both, and again, the defender jumped the short route, and the in-between route was open there and was able to complete it.
Now, I hate to say this as there is a Hilltop down at the 40-yard line, but number 1, they haven't moved the ball downfield. Number 2, they haven't moved the chain gang. Yet now, as I say that, all those things oblige.
And that chain movement is sponsored by the CFL, proud sponsor of the CJFL, and a lot of great tradition for sponsors here for the CGFL this year, John.
Well, again, I mentioned at the top of our broadcast here in the CGFL semifinal competition, with the winner of this game playing in the 112th Canadian Bowl, the 2019 edition. They'll face the winner of the BCFC Championship in BC, mind you. A little bit of advantage for the winner of that game on Saturday, November 16th. But this is a team in the Hilltops, 1921. Talk about some rich history, as this is a pitch play. Almost getting it fumbled, though, are the Beefeaters, as they'll be marked down at the 45-yard line. And, I mean, the offense is one thing, Coach KJ Academy, but the defense is bringing the pain. And for the Saskatoon Hilltops, over the course of 10 games, only conceded 125 points. Although the Beefeaters actually conceded less, albeit over 9 games, 87.
Oh, man, hopefully they don't give up that many tonight, John. But, I mean,
In
I'm
one game.
just trying to say that's out of respect for the Hilltops and much respect for the Beefeaters. And I love their D coordinator, Kevin Griffiths.
Powell throws this one, and it could have been intercepted. Almost having the third interception of this game for the Hilltops was Kirk Morrow. And instead brings up 3rd and long.
Now that's the third time he's rolled to his left, and he's been high on that throw here. You know, he's rolling to his left, and he's looking for Tazzy Van Bell.
He never sets his... Ron, you brought up a good point. Watch it here on the replay. You'll see he never sets his feet, just like Ron said. Watch it, John, here. And he, he's kind of... You can't throw from that position.
And to be honest with you, let's say he does drill Van Bell in the chest with a dart. There's 2 Hilltops in this vicinity. Van Bell's an impressive player, but you're asking a tall task of that individual to get 10-plus yards on that play.
Yeah, and again, we talked about the youth on this team. Tazzy Van Bell, who's a dynamic player, a first-year player in the Beefeaters, as they're choosing to go for it here.
Third down convert attempted in this game for Jake Powell, and I don't know if he was hit as he threw, but that went to nobody, and an incomplete pass will be another turnover, as the Beefeaters now drop for 1 and 3 on the 3rd down converts here with 98 seconds left in the opening half.
He had Van Bell wide open, and I think he just kind of... I think Van Bell was supposed to run it maybe a little bit deeper, and Jake thought that's what he was going to do, but if he gets to the Van Bell, they probably convert a first down there.
So if you're just joining us, it's the CJFL semifinal action here at TD Stadium on your Saturday evening. I'm John Urban, joined by Ron Ferwerda and the Coach KJ Kedemy. Happy to take you through, along with our entire crew, which features Alex Stoddard and Drew Caspi on camera, as well as Stephanie and Adam Melrose taking over the directing and producing duties, as the Hilltops look like they're close to the first down at the 40 or 54-yard line. But a flag may be bringing this one back, Ron.
Yeah, it's a holding call on the outside there. I missed the number of it, but it was before the yards of gain, so it's going to go back 10 yards.
It was the big guy, number 8, that time, who's had a pretty good first half.
Connor
Graham on the hold there.
Yeah, let's be realistic. The Saskatoon team has had a pretty good first half. It's hard to identify one or two players that have had a good half. The offensive line's been pretty good. Minus the kind of the first drive where the Beefeaters kind of showed their cards and really shut down the run. It took a drive or two, and then all of a sudden, okay, well, we've got this now.
Looking for their 6th national championship in a row, their 22nd national championship in program history. As they have 3 weapons to the near side, they fake the throw and will give it on the handoff. I believe that's Abrook, once again bouncing off of a couple tackles. He'll be shy of the first down, but a late flag may give him the yards needed.
Somebody's going to get a flag here, and unfortunately I think the flag's going against the red team for a little bit of extracurricular activity at the end. He does a good job of breaking that tackle. They went low on him right there. Well, maybe not. Maybe you might have a late hit there.
Well, the one thing they did, they threw a bubble earlier for a big play. Then they faked the bubble through a touchdown. Now they fake the bubble and run the draw. And they've got 3 plays out of 1 play that has produced big yards for them.
And there is a UR thrown at the end of this play. An unnecessary roughness penalty does go against the Beefeaters with a $1:21 left here in the opening half of play, down by 33 here in the national semifinal. So it'll be an automatic first down for the Hilltops, and the ball's moved up to the Beefeaters' 45-yard line. Tyler Herman, who's thrown 3 touchdowns in this opening half, has 3 weapons run to the line. Throws this one over to the far side, in and out of the hands of the intended target. I think that's the kicker in Rylan Kleider.
Yeah.
Or is it number 3, Keegan Dix, maybe?
No, I think it's number 7 because he's
3's the receiver out here, guys. Keegan Dix, the big guy. And Keegan Dix this year, John, he's another big receiver. 34 catches, led the team 533 yards, not as many yards as Graham, and he also had 5 touchdowns.
Ball's placed again at the 45. You like that from the officials. Drawing off the pigskin before this next offensive play. You don't think Saskatoon needs too much help from the officials in this one, though. Up by 33 points. As 3 will run to the line. Looks like another handoff for Saskatoon. Diving his way forward to the 40-yard line was Abrook again to bring up 3rd down. With the ball around the 40-yard line, you would suspect that Saskatoon just punts this one away.
Well, they had the fake field goal earlier, so, but showing some, not trying a long field goal. The longest field goal this year for Saskatoon, John, came from, and I actually don't have the longest field goal. So
I thought you said it earlier in the playoffs. He had hit a 33-yarder last week, so that was around 33, 34 yards.
Yeah, and
this might be outside of his range.
In the championship, he had a 14, a 27, and a 34-yarder. He's 4 for 4 in the postseason, hitting a 25-yarder in the semifinals, but no field goals needed here. They'll let the play clock drip down to 1, and they're going to punt this one away roughly from the 50. A bit of a botched punt, though, gets caught up in the air, and you see that in a blue moon occasion in Canadian football. When the ball kind of gets locked up in the air, the officials just blow the play dead for player safety. Talk about that a bit, Ron.
Well, again, it's a player safety thing. They don't want, because you've got a lot of contact in there. Everyone's going to be looking
Everybody's looking up, and yet everybody's running south and northbound at each other.
Yeah, and there's 2 things that can happen, and both of them are going to be bad.
And the Canadian football, guys, is different than an American football. And you talk about Deflategate. That's why teams that played in cold areas would deflate the football. But this football is rock solid. And you saw on that kick, it went 15 yards.
Canadians have bigger balls, Jay. With 47 seconds left here before halftime and down by 33, it's Jake Powell right through the middle. And this could have been intercepted, but it pops loose. As I think having the opportunity this time for the Hilltops was Jaden Pingu.
Well, again, they're dropping 3 across that sky coverage, as you can see, almost 5 across there.
Is that a new quarterback yet?
I can't really tell.
Oh, that's Jake.
Yeah.
That's Jake. Yeah. I like the way Jake stood in there, though. It's just the ball. It's tough. It's tough sledding in this type of weather when you get behind and they know you're throwing every down.
It's a Saturday night fight under the lights of TD Stadium as there's 4 weapons to the right side for Powell. He's going to throw it to the right side. Now that's a live ball. If Saskatoon recovers, it is theirs. The dog pile jumps on top of it, and the official says...
I think it's a Hilltopper ball here.
As the pile will separate.
That's a swing screen to Tazi Van Bell. Like the first time, I think he's only had one other carry on the outside zone.
And the Beefeaters are lucky to say they maintained possession. I agreed with Ron right there. I thought the ball popped into Saskatoon's favor, and it's been in their favor all Saturday evening, Ron.
Yeah, and really, it's been a moment. It's been it's kind of hard to say it's been the momentum because it hasn't been momentum. It's been a wave.
Replay one more time, Steph. Watch the effort. I think it's I'm not sure, 50 or someone from the old line that actually does get the ball back for the Beefeaters. I agree with you. It looked like they were going to get it. I'm not sure who it is. Number 11.
Yeah, diving in there at the last second is Josh Weiler.
And that's what you like to see. I mean, I know what the score is, but forget the score. That's a great effort play. Prevents more points.
Josh Waller, another St. Thomas product as well.
Prevents points for now as there's 32 seconds left here in the half, and their puncher will be back around their 8-yard line to boot this one away with 2 punt returners split evenly at the 55-yard line. They're going to actually kick this one out of bounds right into the Saskatoon bench, and the Hilltop with 25 seconds, dare I say, have time if they want to put more points on the board, Ron, for Werda.
Yeah, again, depends on what they want to do. Right now, they're hitting on all cylinders. They're putting everything on film for whoever they're going to be playing in 2 weeks to have to prepare for. And again, when you have to prepare for multifacets of a game, and again, the precision and the timing that these guys play with, this is an impressive team.
Hilltops started off their season back on August 18th with a 34-20 win in Winnipeg against the Rifles. They would continue a road trip to start off the regular season, 34-16, picking up a win in Regina against the Thunder as Herman completes a pass up to the 45-yard line. As the Hilltops offense continues to roll, I believe coming away with this one is Connor Graham. Let's face it, it's been Connor Graham all day, all night for Tyler Herman in the aerial assault. But yeah, going back to their regular season, they had a really tight game against Edmonton. I'll get into that after this Abrook run right up the middle. He only needed 2 yards for the first down. He'll get it, and there's a flag tacked on at the end of this play, but I think it's a hold. This one actually might be coming back against the Hilltops.
Well, it's going to be a hold, but is it going to be before yards gained? There was a really late flag, so they are going to march it back. They're going to say it was before yards gained. Yeah, at the point of attack.
Yeah, he basically mauled that's Pat Arnold, the center. He mauled the defensive lineman there for the Beefeaters.
In week 3, though, of the PFC regular season, the Hilltops barely escaped with a 24-22 win in Edmonton on September 1st against the Huskies. In that game, they trailed 14-0 after the first quarter of play, 19-7 at halftime, and it was Ben Abrook hitting the game-winning touchdown with his legs with a 1:47 left in that game to give the Hilltops the 2-point victory. 2nd and long. Herman gonna air this one almost into triple coverage. Incomplete pass. 5 seconds left on the clock. 3rd down coming up.
Again, dropping into zone there. It's just, again, they're running the same pattern again. It's that slot seam, and they're running double outs there, or so double deep.
The next week after just beating the Edmonton Huskies by 2, they only beat the Regina Thunder at home by a touchdown, 28-21. But I think these are kind of sentiments I would have used in the opening quarter of play, Jay, because again, 14-0 is the biggest deficit they've had to come back from, and that was over the course of 3 quarters of play. Well, the Beefeaters are down by 33 points as we're going to go into halftime.
Yeah, and Joey Cortez there, great coverage. I'd like to see him come away with that pick.
Some pressure coming here from the punt cover team, as they'll boot this one all the way down to the 29-yard line and not allow any real estate to come back up the field. As some fans upset at the end of that play. I don't know necessarily why, but that does conclude the first half of action here from TD Stadium in the CJFL semifinal between the London Beefeaters and the Saskatoon Hilltops. The Hilltops are 2 quarters away from advancing to the championship in the National Dance, the 112th Canadian Bowl, against the winner of the BC FC Championship, and that will be held in BC on November 16th. Quickly, a recap of the opening half of play. Rylan Claytor hit a 27-yard field goal to go up 3-0 early. Then Ben Abrook capped off an incredible drive, which was really started thanks to an interception by Bailey Taylor. When it was 10-0, the Beefeaters thought they had life, driving the ball into Saskatoon territory. A 30-yard attempted field goal by Centino would go for naught, as the Saskatoon Hilltops would concede the Rouge to have a 10-1 lead, and that seemed to be the turning point, because after that, it was all the Tyler Herman show. 75-yard hookup with Connor Graham, 50-yard hookup with Connor Graham, then a 10-yard pass, his 3rd touchdown of the game with 4:36 remaining here in the second quarter of play. 34-1 for the Hilltops at halftime. I'm John Urban. We're heading off to a quick halftime break, but the coach KJ Kedemy has a special guest on the other side.
And here at the CJFL semifinal game here between the Saskatoon Hilltops and our London Beefeaters, and I've got with me the CJFL Commissioner Jim Pankovic. Jim, talk to us about the earlier game. We have a winner.
So we do. In the BC Conference Final, the Langley Rams ended up outlasting the West Shore Rebels to win the right to host the Canadian Bowl in 2 weeks from now.
Jim, if I could get you come right over here, we'll get you on camera. Jim, you've been with the CJFL, and this is a great product. You see a score like this. I mean, the Beefeaters are a good football team. They won the Ontario Conference Championship against a talented AKO Fratman team. But then you have this team that's kind of, Patriot-like, I guess, or Dynasty-like. That's what everybody's talking about. But the Saskatoon Hilltops, 9 potential championships in 10 years. They're playing a flawless game. It's not like the Beefeaters are playing bad out here. It's just Saskatoon's executing at a high level. Talk about, what you guys are trying to do in the CJFL to bring that competition level so that you get maybe someone that can challenge these Hilltops one day.
No, that's a really good point. Saskatoon Hilltops have an incredible program, but I think we've got 18 teams across the country. Every one of them, when they start the season, has a chance to compete for the Canadian Championships. And, we're doing some things in terms of raising the standards, increasing our ability to have better film for the players, better film for the coaches, looking at, better opportunities for the players to develop. at the end of the day, the Hilltops are a good football team. But as I've seen London Beefeaters this year, they've played some incredibly good football and some incredibly good games out in Ontario. So I think the score isn't necessarily indicative of the play. Saskatoon has taken advantage of some breaks that they've gotten. But London, in a couple of cases, they had a couple of interceptions that maybe gave Saskatoon a chance. But other than that, in the second quarter, they started to move the football.
And Chris Marshall last year was the head coach for 2 years, actually, of the Beefeaters. And then Jesse Maddox came in as Chris graduated onto the Western O-line coaching position. But Jesse Maddox, talk about he went out west and learned the way football is played out there. And he brought that mentality here. And in a year, wins an OFC championship. I mean, the Beefeaters have struggled, let's be honest. Talk about young, talented coaches that you have coming all across the country and kind of going into, learning out west what it's like to win, or going to Quebec and all that kind of stuff, and the growth of your coaches.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The coaches, coaches are an integral part of developing the players, and really a part of the asset or the aspect of our teams is really trying to develop the players right from, they've got 4 to 5 years of eligibility. Our coaches really take the time and actually work with them through those 4 or 5 years. Jesse is from out west. He brings probably brought a little bit different mindset to the team that they've had in the last couple of years, both on and off the field. On the field, they're playing very aggressive. Their defense is playing well. They're tackling well. Their fundamentals very good. Off the field, he's done an incredible job of recruiting the athletes, getting out in the community, talking to the high school players, talking to the community football players, getting out there and letting them know about the London Beefeaters and the quality football program that they do have. And you see it on the field. They've got quality players on the field, and they're only going to get better. They're a very young team.
And do you think with a Sunday night championship game last week in the OFC, and that, it was a tough road. I'm not to say that Saskatoon didn't have a tough road, but just saying that, you play Hamilton on the road, and then you come in and you have to play against, Windsor, who was the top-rated team, the passing tandem of their two quarterbacks. And yet, Jesse was able to overcome that win on Sunday night. But it takes a toll. And then the other thing I was going to bring up is this 40-man roster. Right. It's interesting. Explain how that kind of works and how that might affect a young team.
Sure. So it's 40-man roster. They were successful. They won the Ontario Conference Championship last week, so they may have had a little bit of a letdown coming into this week, because that was a big win for them, a big win on the road, maybe a little unexpected in terms of where they're at in their development as an organization. Maybe they weren't expecting to do that this year, so that was a big win for them. So there may have been a little bit of letdown coming into this game. You did see them come back and play much better in the second quarter, and I think as they get some of the experience here in the second half of this game and go into next season with some of those young players, keeping around the coaches, another year for the coaching staff as well, I think you'll see them play much better next year.
So you as the commissioner, you get this kid like this Herman kid at quarterback. Talk about some of the stars of the league that in the last couple of years, and I know there's a rich tradition of stars that went on to play CFL, but I got to tell you, this Herman kid's pretty good. Is he gonna? How many years does he have left, and is he going somewhere? Because I really like the kid.
Yeah, well, with Herman is Tyler is his last year, so this is his last year of eligibility. So I don't believe he has any years of eligibility left. So this will be his last year. But we've got a lot of players, and we'll be announcing our All-Canadian team here in 2 weeks, in the week leading up to the Canadian Bowl. So you'll see a representation from right across the country with, at all of the different positions. And what you'll see is we've got a lot of really good talent that have developed within the league. You'll see some repeat All-Canadians that will be announced, but you'll also see some young players that are really dynamic. Watching games earlier this year, players at GTA with the Grizzlies, at Windsor, all right across the country. We've got tremendous amount of good quality athletes within the league, and sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. A lot of the players maybe come into the programs. We get a lot of players that maybe have only had 1 or 2 years of experience playing football before they start. So sometimes it takes a year or two for them to get a little bit better. But we have to make sure we have the programs in place to be able to deal with that.
Jim, last question I'm going to put out to you again. Thank you for taking some time in this championship game or semifinal game to come and talk to us. What's the future holding for the CJFL, and is there ever any expansion to Quebec or Nova Scotia? Just a question I thought of on my way here today, just thinking I'm from Quebec originally. So.
No, I think we're always looking to add teams. We've got 18 teams in 17 communities right across the country. We've definitely got interest from different communities in Ontario, and over the off season, we might be seeing some added teams added in Ontario. We're always looking for additional teams in BC and on the prairies. The challenge you have in the prairies sometimes is just some of the distances between the cities, and having to deal with that both on a financial and just making sure that they've got the facilities that they can play in. But we're always interested in adding teams. We'll continue to look at where else outside of the provinces we're already playing, and then we can add teams. That might mean in Quebec, that might mean in the Maritimes. We have had interest over the years in those areas, and we'll keep working on them to make sure that once we actually do pull the trigger on something like that, it'll actually be something that'll be sustainable.
Well, hey, listen, thank you so much for having us, Junior Mustang TV, on your CJFL broadcast, and we wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much for doing the game today.
Take care. I'm KJ Kennemy, and that's Jim Pekovich, the CJFL commissioner. You will get John Urban, our play-by-play guy, at the end of this halftime break. We'll see you on the other side. Well, I'm back, KJ Kennemy here. I thought we were going to go to John Urban. We will in a minute. I've got a good friend of mine, actually, a gentleman that I had the pleasure to coach, I guess, in semi-pro. Aaron Giesler, director of sport for Football Canada. Aaron, welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. And talk to us about what Football Canada is doing here at this game and kind of some of the things you got on the horizon.
Yeah, so CJFL is a really great partner of us, the Football Canada. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of the CJFL. I play London Beefeaters, and it's a great showcase of players across the country. That it's different than university, right? The guys that have different paths in life, and so it's a great showcase for us. So we work really well with them, and we have a lot of programs that we do in conjunction with the CJFL. So we're always looking to grow the sport, and this is one of the great avenues for our kids to be able to get to is junior football to be able to play in this country. So.
We've seen some calls today, Aaron, the high tackles and it's frustrating because as a football fan and a football enthusiast, that's why we come to watch. I mean, it's a physical game,
yes,
but it's about safety. Talk about some of the things that you guys have done to improve, the proper way to tackle.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a big thing for our game, right? Like, I know as a coach, right, we want to have the best tacklers, the most efficient tacklers, and a lot of the times it's actually the safer way to do things, right? So one of the things that we've been focusing on a lot is how can we get kids as young as possible to learn the best ways to tackle and block, so that when they get to this level, that they're not leading with their heads, they're not doing things that put themselves in danger or put other guys in danger too, right? So that's the big thing, and it's all about coaches, right? Can we give the tools to our coaches to be able to do the right things? If we can do that, then we're a lot further.
Aaron, I know we're getting ready for the second half, so I got one more question for you. But you're a London native.
Yep.
You know the Beefeaters here. You know Jesse Maddox. You know a lot of these guys. It's 34-1, but I keep trying to sell. They haven't played that bad. This Saskatoon Hilltops is a pretty polished team that's mature, I think. What do you think of the Beef so far? What should they do in the second half?
So they're playing against the top tier of this in this whole country of junior football. I think what they need to do is just eliminate some of their mistakes. Got to stay strong in the front and be able to just stay calm and realize that this is their chance to compete at this level, learn from it, and then just capitalize. Maybe making a couple more throws here and there, but they're right in the game. So.
Well, listen, Aaron, I got to tell you, it's great to have this opportunity to talk to you, and all the best, and I'm sure I'll see you in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
Thank
and that's KJ Kennemy. We should be back in about a minute here. Our producer, Adam Melrose, Steph Melrose, are going to get us going with Johnny Urban on the mic here. We'll see you in a minute.
And welcome back to TD Stadium here on your Saturday evening. 34 points put on by the 5-time defending national champion Saskatoon Hilltops in the opening half of play. Oh yeah, they conceded a rouge after a 30-yard missed field goal by the Beefeaters, and that's only the 1 point on the board for the home team, who finished the OFC regular season with a 5-2 record. They lost the first game of the season, 1916, to the Hamilton Hurricanes. They avenged that loss in the semifinals. They lost in the second last game of the regular season to the AKO Fratman from Windsor, 28-13. They avenged that loss in Windsor, 28-20. In the second last game of the regular season to the AKO Fratman from Windsor, 28-13. They avenged that loss in Windsor, 28-20, to win the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy, which is the same game tonight as the kick returner marches past the 40 after hurtling around the 35, marked at the 45-yard line. Great field positioning for Tyler Herman to go back to work, the quarterback for the Hilltops, which threw not one, not two, but 3 touchdown passes in the opening half, including a 75-yarder to Connor Graham, a 50-yarder to Connor Graham, oh yeah, and just a 10-yarder to Keegan Dix.
Yeah, Matt Turple, the leading returner, 11 returns, 248 yards this year.
So Herman and the offense goes back to work for the Hilltops. 3 will run to the line, trying to throw this one deep, and I believe this will be caught from 145 to the other. Keegan Dix receives the ball from Tyler Herman. If you thought that the offense might chill out a little bit at halftime, you can think again.
Yeah, you know, John, what a throw. I mean, he puts that on the money. I mean, I thought it was going to get picked, to be honest with you, but just a great throw and a great catch by the talented Dix.
I mentioned, though, the avenging of the loss to the Hurricanes from Hamilton and the Fratman, AKO, that is, of Windsor. Yet, it's going to take an awfully tall task. Is wide open in the middle of the field is Ben Abrook. Abrook breaks off of a couple tackles. In fact, it takes a pretty fierce effort near the Beefeaters' 10-yard line to knock him out of bounds. And I actually have to apologize. That's not Abrook. It's Dylan Heintz in on the action. Heintz with the catch and run.
Heintz this year, John, had 10 catches, 301 yards for a 30.1 yard average and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, the 2 touchdowns during the regular season for the PFC. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for that outstanding effort near the tail end of that play, I thought he was gone on this affair too. So we're just over a minute into this second half of action. Herman's going to throw this behind the receiver who catches it. And they're going to say he's down at the 1-yard line. What? Wait a minute. Take me through this replay, Ron. He falls into the end zone.
Yeah, but I think his knee was down early, and it's first contact on the ground.
So you're saying that the knee was down and the ball hadn't
Let's
broke
get that
the
replay
plane.
again, Steph. I'm going to argue with Ron here.
Are we going to start?
Yes. Oh, we only got the end of it.
We get the tail end celebration.
That's like a pretty cool celebration, like the forest.
It's trying to sell it to the officials going, hey, wait a minute, I
turtle?
was
I'm on
in
my
the
back?
end zone. High snap over the quarterback's head. Having to go back to get it is Herman. And I think he might have just saved his own team's bacon there back at the Beefeaters' 13-yard line.
Yeah, again, high snap. He did a good job of just getting right back on top of it. Kind of the first miscue we've seen made by the Hilltops.
Yeah, the first and only miscue so far of the game, and there's 12:46 remaining in the third quarter, KJ.
Yeah, Martin Ortega that time was your London source for sports. Johnny on the spot, almost recovering the football, but does a good job of not allowing Herman to do anything after he recovers it.
The 5-time defending national champions, looking to make it 9 championships in 10 years here in 2019, are trying to go to the end zone now. It's Herman trying to Randy Moss, the defender that time, was the Hilltops, and again, just trying to make it out through the glare there. That's 82, I believe.
28, I believe, was the defender on that.
Godson was the intended receiver, John.
And I thought Godson for
and
a
Cortez
second
again
there.
is another great play, John.
Yeah, Cortez has had a really well played game. Great position there. He got in front of the receiver, made him climb the ladder to try to go over top of him. Really low percentage completion on that with body positioning.
And with the third down coming up here goes Rylan Claytor to kick another field goal. This from 17 yards out far. Hash mark is through. So less than 3 minutes into the second half of action, Saskatoon continues to steamroll points onto the TD scoreboard here in London, Ontario. It's a 37-1 game now, courtesy of the 17-yard field goal.
Yeah, that Luna 10:59 drive, and that ended in a field goal. And again, you talk about the kicker, 22 of 26 this year, 80% field goal, conversion, and then 40 for 41 on his converts. This guy has put a lot of points up on the board this year, and he makes no mistake.
And Ron, you mentioned it in a prior broadcast about the importance of a kicker, because you don't notice the importance of a kicker until you don't have one. Then you go, wait a minute, that's something we need in a hurry. But you think about this Rylan Claytor guy, and Jay mentioned his regular season stats, but he's been perfect so far in the postseason, 4 for 4 in the PFC playoffs, and now perfect 2 for 2 here in the CJFL National Semifinal.
And again, like we talked about earlier, the ball is actually really, really hard. It's hard to kick, so this is a really good job by the young man.
And he'll drill this one all the way down to the 15-yard line. I believe that's Spencer Foster breaking off of a couple tackles, and to be honest with you, Jay, he'll be marked at the 40-yard line, but I thought he might have had an avenue to break off to that far sidelines, and there was some blocking schemes set up for him.
Yeah, it looked like he just kind of made a decision, put his head down, and sometimes you have to do that as a returner, but yeah, like you said, he looked like he could have got to the edge, to the boundary there, the weak side, there might have been something there.
Down by 36 points with their offense touching the ball for the first time in the second half with 12 minutes remaining in the third. What's the game plan right now for the Beefeaters in those silver buckets, Coach?
Well, they just have to get first downs, and they got to convert and get some points. And so, again, one play at a time, and get the ball to Tazzy Vangabell on the edge.
Well, and they try and go right up the gut on the run this time to gain maybe 2 or 3 yards. Ron, I kind of throw the same question at you. I mean, if you're the Beefeaters, it's obviously now or never down by 36 points. Do you try anything differently? Like, this is one thing I know you guys are all conventional and conservative. To me, if I was down by 30, I'd try a flea flicker. I'd be Hail Marying it. I'd be doing anything underneath the sun.
You've really never seen a game that I've coached. I don't believe in
Yes,
conservative.
yeah.
Like, I'll throw the ball on my 2-yard line because why not?
Oh, Jake Powell is sacked at the 40-yard line. It's the offense that's put up 37 points, but maybe lost in all of this is the fact that the defense has been immaculate. The Beefeaters hasn't put up anything on the board. It's a self-conceded rouge by the Hilltops after a missed field goal, which has the lone point on the board right now.
Yeah, and again, the other thing is that point that they gave up, I thought he had the opportunity to get the ball out.
Yeah, they did
but
too.
he took the need to take the ball on the 35-yard line because all he had to do was get it to the 1-yard line.
And at that point, it was a 10-1 game.
Yeah.
So he was thinking, okay, this is still a field positioning battle.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have had that same thinking with the, fortitude of knowing that it was going to be 37-1 in the near future. As the Beefeaters will punt this one away, and on a rain-dampened night, a beautiful punt sent all the way down to the 35-yard line, and great job by the punt cover team to allow maybe 1 yard on the return from the Hilltops. But again, Saskatoon, with their domination-style dynasty and a 36-point lead, go back on the TD turf run with 10:35 remaining in the third quarter.
Yeah, and again, if you're the Beefeaters, you got to maintain composure. You got to play smart. You got to play for, you want to get all your guys touches. You want to make sure everyone's getting involved in the game. And you still got a half of football to play, and you still want to go in and execute. Again, good job by the defensive line getting penetration and throwing the running back down in the backfield.
Yeah, you talk about execution, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, and the Beefs oblige you for now, Ron Forward, as they get to the bell cow. And Ben Abrook, there does appear to be a Beefeater down, though, as a result after that tackle for a loss.
Maybe Steph could get us that replay again, John, but you're going to see Tyrell Pierce. What a job he does from his tackle position. And I think it's number 18, guys. I'm trying to get the number. Is that Ryan Troshy that comes in and makes the play at the end? So just a great, teamwork that time on that defensive run stop.
And we have gotten word that it is the Langley Rams that have prevailed and won the BCFC championship, meaning that it's the Rams of Langley hosting the winner of this game, and one would assume with 10:07 remaining in the third quarter with a 36-point lead that will more than likely be the Saskatoon Hilltops. And again, that would be a rematch of the 2018 final, which saw the Langley Rams fall 58-21 against the Hilltops when they 5-peated, looking for the 6-peat this year, 9 out of the last 10 years.
Well, again, that's a film that if I'm the Langley Rams, I'm putting up and go, hey guys, remember this? Now it's in our house. Now it's on our turf. They got to come
wait a
to
minute.
us.
No. You got film on an old game where they beat you, and now you think, okay, now the shoe's on the other foot because it's in our house and we got a chance for our game. That sounds a lot like the Beefeaters, who lost in 2012, 51-7. Got a game back in their barn 7 years later and thought, oh man, this is our night for revenge.
No.
37-1 right now,
The,
Ron.
the difference is that was 7 years difference. There's still holdovers from both those teams
Very good point.
on those teams. And again, anytime that you lose, and as a coach, you know, and you kind of feel that they've kind of rubbed your nose in a little bit. Coaches have long memories. Like, trust me. Like, there's been times that they've gone, okay, I'll remember that. And when you have the opportunity to kind of rub their nose in a little bit, oh, you relish that.
Beefeaters really stepped it up
Ortega
defensively.
knocked the ball down, John, on the Herman pass.
Yeah, this last drive, though, they've been immaculate, something that they needed to do a lot more in the opening half of play. It forces Saskatoon to punt this one all the way down to the Beefeaters' 40-yard line, trying to make his way up with a head of steam to the 50 before being dogpiled on there. And maybe a little bit of conversations going on after the whistle. I don't think they're exchanging Instagram accounts, though, KJ.
Yeah, that was Felix Noel on the return, and nice physical, you know, like Ron says, you catch it in the air, you're going to get 20, and he gets about that, and a nice, at the end, though, little words in that pile.
Something we should mention when broadcasting OPFL football over the summer was the 12-minute quarters, but now in the CGFL here in the semifinals, 15-minute quarters, and especially when you're down by 36, that could either be a huge help or just make this evening feel that much longer, is trying to zigzag out of the backfield as the running back for the Beefeaters to the most Canadian position in all of the field at the 55-yard line. It does bring up second down.
Yeah, Tazi Van Bell on the outside zone play makes the first man miss, and this is what he does so dynamically and so well. He can stick his foot in the ground and change direction. So again, good job by the Beefeaters in sticking with the game plan, gain of 5. Everything in your playbook is still wide open for you. This is something that they haven't had a lot of success of. Saskatoon's really doing a good job on first down defense.
3 swag to the line. Looks like another handoff to the running back, but great penetration by the Hilltops. And to be honest with you, with the tackle is Caleb Haight. But I thought maybe a little bit of a late blow by the Hilltops. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but late to the party that time. Looked like it was number 65 and Tristan Herring.
And he's the guy on the last kick return that got a little wear with words on Felix Noel.
So 8:10 now remains on the clock. And Ron, again, I know it's not peaches to oranges, apples to pears, my friend, but does the clock continue to tick now with a 36-point differential like we see in youth football here in Ontario?
Well, again, it's got to be an agreed upon fact by both the coaches have to agree, yeah, we're just going to run the clock. Let's get out of Dodge.
And if you were the Beefeaters, at least if you were the urban-led Beefeaters, you're saying, heck no. We're going to play every last second of this tilt, and even though we're down by 36, we'll take every minute left. As wincing in pain, you felt that one up here, partner. KJ Kennedy, take me through this punt return.
Number 50, the fullback, and he's caught a pass. He's running.
KJ Kennedy, take me through this punt return.
Number 50, the fullback, and he's caught a pass. He's ran the football as a quarterback, and right now, watch.
Wrestling tackle.
Yeah, that number 50 for the Beefeaters, that's Brandon Gallant.
And I'm not talking about Olympic wrestling. I'm talking Hulk Hogan style, Ron.
Yeah, that was a good old-fashioned, like, full body, almost a flying, like a.
Almost gave the Hilltop an out-of-body experience.
God, Gallant's a lineman, though, guys. I mean, if you see it on that replay, he's out of the play, and somehow he scrapes over and is able to unleash that shot. And there's a Beefeater down, I believe.
Yeah, down at the 25-yard line between the hash marks, and that might be a cramp because the trainer's bending that left leg back, just trying to get the feeling back into it. And again, kind of, beating on a dead horse or spinning the same record right now, Mr. Forwerda. 36-point differential. In fact, you got to think, all signs are good. You're only down 3-0 here in the second half thanks to a 17-yard field goal from Ryan Kleider. So if you're playing the battle of the halves, you're only down 3-0 on this side, but still no offense to speak of. And this is a junior Mustangs. This is a Beefeaters team that put up 28 points against the Windsor AKO Fratman in Windsor in the championship dance, put up 17 points against Hamilton. But I think back to what would have been their last game of the regular season was a forfeiture from the Niagara Raiders. Maybe that kind of hindered them. Yeah, it helped them get healthy for the playoffs and get them to this point, but now they can't draw on those experiences. As the jet sweep to the near side works to perfection for the Hilltops, as this one will go up to the 35-yard line. Frustration being shown too at the end of the play by the Beefeaters. Is coming away with this one, I believe, is Jordan Tabin. You're starting to see more of the secondary cast, if you will, right now for the Hilltops with their 36-point lead.
Yeah, they're appearing pretty confident. They haven't shown much. The Beefeaters haven't shown much spark on offense. You got to get some of your other guys' touches in there as well. And again, it's a long flight for all of these teams. As we see the backup quarterback, number 4 in the game as well.
Yeah, new quarterback at the helm in Doug Fleming, but Fleming's pass is knocked down at the line to bring up 2nd and 10. 6:52 remains in this one, and going back to the point of seeing more of the, we'll call it the assisting cast members of the Saskatoon Hilltops. Not only is it a great experience for them to be playing at the national semifinal, but to Ron's point, KJ, this could be huge. Let's say a key player does get injured in the championship dance on November 16th in BC against the Langley Rams. You got more experience to draw on here.
Absolutely, and that's what they're trying to get with their number 2 quarterback.
As they're going to hand this one off up the middle after faking the throw from Doug Fleming and refusing to go down right away, gaining 17 yards, and the small little contingency that made the trip almost 2,600 miles away from Saskatchewan, the province. I see about 20 or 30 Hilltop fans, fanatics, true fanatics, Ron, in those far stands.
Yeah, and again, good kudos to them.
I see about 20 or 30 Hilltop fans, fanatics, true fanatics, Ron, in those far stands.
Yeah, and again, good kudos to them. A lot of Hilltop stuff, swag wearing around. The hardcore people over there. There's a few mixed in over that side at this side as well. We got the Beefeaters with a high tackle at the end of the run, 15 yards. So we're inside the plus territory again.
We know winning helps, Coach KJ Academy, but I looked on the website of these Hilltops, and you look at the facility and the things they put into this program, as they will get another first down run past the 30 this time. Going back to my point, though, after this first down gallop by the Hilltops is, domination and winning. You should have a little more money to spare around the program, but I look at their locker room, I look at their facility, I look at their jerseys, I look at how they boarded the charter plane in varsity jackets and look like something out of a Texas high school football movie. I mean, this program is truly something else, unworldly compared to some other things we've seen in the junior football programs across the nation. As again, it's the backup and Doug Fleming having his pass completed, spinning off of a tackle. And again, this looks like the 3rd straight first down play from the Hilltops. And again, they're using the majority of their backups right now, which includes Doug Fleming, who went 9 of 16 passing in the regular season for 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and just 109 yards.
And that was Carter McLean on the reception. He had 30 carries this year for 186 yards, and a nice little run at to get that first.
I don't want to be insulting because obviously the Beefeaters feel a little dejected right now, down by 36. But I'm starting to think, like, if the Hilltops just started their backups in this game, would we be having more of an even spread right now? Like this, we're seeing their backups on the field right now, and we have. Well, that play finally gets stymied, but before that, 3 straight plays, 3 straight first downs for the Hilltops, with the majority of their second cast out there.
Again, it's the experience, right? The Beefs are a program that have struggled, and the rebuild happened a couple of years ago, and Jesse came in this year and did such a phenomenal job of recruiting.
And they won their second ever Ted Morris Memorial Trophy as a result.
This is all experience, and they're going to chalk it up, and I guarantee you this team will be back next year.
Fleming hucks it into the end zone. Touchdown, Hilltops. Doug Fleming finds Connor Graham. It's the hat trick for Graham here in the national semifinal. Man, oh man, the Hilltops look like they're running downhill right now against the Beefeaters.
One of the CGFL sponsors is the Barron Championship rings, and I'll tell you, I think all of ours MVP right now has got to be Graham's name's got to be the one that's floating near the top.
Well, it's either Connor Graham with his 3 TD passes, or how about the guy that got him the ball twice in Tyler Herman, as the extra point is good. And to be honest with you, I said this in the first half, and I definitely mean it now with 4:03 remaining in the third quarter. I'm beginning to be a loss for words, Ron. I've seen domination. I called an 81-3 final in a national semifinal called the UTEC Bowl in the U Sports scene. when the Western Mustangs went down to Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and beat up on the poor Acadian Axemen, who won the AUS championship that year, 81-3 in their home crowd. They were winning 57-0 at halftime. This isn't quite as bad with the score 33-1 at halftime, but now with it 44-1 and still a couple minutes left to play in the third quarter, where is the white flag? Because I want to start waving it.
Well, to make another point that you made earlier, John, you were talking about Saskatchewan's facilities and
how do you grow domination?
How do you grow domination? It's a culture, and the West has a different culture and mentality than Ontario seems to have. You seem to have it in Quebec, in Laval, and Montreal, and those type of places.
And the Prairie Province of Saskatchewan certainly has it.
Well, guys, there's I want to talk about this after. There's a difference here with the West that we don't understand, is that junior football is more prevalent, like in the sense that an 18-year-old might play junior football and go to university at 20 or 21. And that's one of the things that happens, just like CJEP in Quebec.
Well, and I want to add to that point just real quickly. Last year I called the Mitchell Bowl, which is the other national semifinal in U Sports University football, and that featured the Saskatchewan Huskies visiting against the Western Mustangs here at TD Stadium, where Western prevailed to go off against Laval, but lost in Quebec to the Rouge et Or. However, going back to that point, when I was reading the roster of the Saskatchewan Huskies, Hilltop, PFC champion, national champion, CJFL champion. It was littered throughout the Huskies list, and you wondered why were the Huskies such a strong, dominating team to come out of the West, to win the West, and almost pull out the upset against the Western Mustangs here at home against the Huskies in the Mitchell Bowl. And yet, like I said, about 80+% of their entire roster came from the province of Saskatchewan. At least 50% of all those products, Ron, came from this very program in the, well, I hate to say this if you're the Langley Rams, soon to be 6-time defending national champion Saskatoon Hilltops.
We saw it you see it with the Calgary Dinos as well. A lot of those guys play for the Calgary Colts. A lot of the people on the UBC Thunderbirds, they play on the Langley Rams. You see the guys from Manitoba, they play for the Riflemen.
Hilltops, by the way, played the Calgary Colts back on September 22nd in Week 6 of the PFC regular season. 53-6 was the final for the Hilltops. Again, you just get a taste that they dominate no matter what time of the year it is. This pass is complete, and is that still Jake Powell at the helm for the Beefeaters? I'm just trying to make out the number. It is. So they're sticking in with Powell with 2:24 remaining, but you mentioned it too. The would-be starting quarterback from the regular season unavailable for the Beefeaters.
Yeah, like Powell and him shared time. Then Powell got hurt, and then McCallum got hurt at the end of the year. But both guys have been formidable at that position for the Beefs this year.
3 run to the line. The quarterback smothered, and he'll be sacked. It's a Saskatoon sandwich back at the 52-yard line. And with 2 minutes remaining in the third quarter, I mean, I recall us doing a Pee-wee game a couple weeks ago, Ron, or maybe it was even just last week, between London and Mississauga. London was up, I think, about 30 or 40-0, and secretly as a broadcaster in the back of my mind, I'm cheering for the underdog. It's a part of me. I don't know, a part of my DNA. As soon as one guy's getting clobbered, I just hope some way, somehow they can come back and win. And I'm not trying to be a homer here, but man, oh man, it'd be great just to see the Beefeaters get into that end zone. As the quarterback is flushed out from behind yet again. Like a heat-seeking missile out of the backfield for the Saskatoon team.
Tristan Herring is 65, John, is just, he's just having his way right now on the edge.
But the way he attacked him, and then the fact that, obviously Powell doesn't recognize the fact that the guy's coming out at 6 o'clock, but he outgunned the quarterback.
I want to point something out. I saw this in their huddle. They all hold hands, and I haven't seen that for years, but you can see how well-knit this team is together, and just like you said, it's something special to watch.
Live by the gun, die by the bullet, and, well, Saskatoon certainly hasn't done that since the mid-2017 season when they lost, and that was a close one too, mind you. When they lost last time, it wasn't like they lost 50-0. No, they lost 29-26 in the mid-season portion of the PFC regular season in 2017 to the Regina Thunder. So, even when you go back 2 full calendar years ago to their last loss, it's not like they lost by a whole lot, Ron.
No, and again, we talk about, in our area, the London-Windsor rivalry that you've got brewing, whether it be the Beefeaters and the Fratmen, the Junior Mustangs and the Ravens, again, all the way through the Knights and the Spitfires. The Regina Saskatoon rivalry is, for us to understand it, it's that multiplied by about 4 or 5. It is unheard of in the province. It is the most deep-seated rivalry that you could possibly get.
Carter Norrish with that last reception for Saskatoon during the regular season, 9 receptions for 43 yards. They're going to sweep this one over to the far side, trying to cut back in at the 50. Spinning off of a tackle but dropped down immediately was Matt Turple.
Yeah, well, you got a hold on the outside edge there, unfortunately. You're going to see it right there, number 71. He had him hooked. And again, it's the sideways, and he had both hands on the front, and he had a hand on the front and the back. It's a great block, but then again, just body position right there. He loses leverage a little bit, and it's the hold.
Let me put this into perspective, though. Ben Abrooks, their bell cow. 272 times Ben Abrooks got the ball to rush her in the regular season. Matt Turple just got the ball right, okay? He got the ball 1 time in the regular season for 4 yards. So this team that's got a 43-point lead at this point is simply going, you know what? Let's give an opportunity to a guy we only gave the ball 1 time to during an 8-game regular season, where Saskatoon, of course, went a perfect 8-0.
Well, the other thing is as well is like you want to protect your bell cow, going forward. This game has been pretty much out of reach for a little while here.
Fleming pump faking, throwing the dump pass. I thought almost for half a second a chance for the interception for the Beefeaters. It goes down as an incomplete pass. Ethan Godson, the intended target.
Van Bell on the coverage. Interesting. I haven't seen Van Bell play DB ever.
No.
And there he is in the coverage.
I guess speed on speed is what Maddox and the coaching staff of the Beefeaters is thinking here. And you think back specifically to about midway through that first quarter and second quarter, Ron, all of a sudden Tyler Herman harnessed his inner 1994 Sega Genesis Troy Aikman football as he just started hucking it deep, and guys kept reeling it in, including Connor Graham.
I'm going to go even more old school than that. I'm going to go
Tecmo Bowl?
Well, I'm going to go the old Dan Marino, just throwing it up to the Clayton brothers. And again, this kid's got a big arm. They've got good receivers. They like to put the ball downfield. And again, like we talked about, when you commit to stop the run, and then you have the ability to go, okay, well, we'll just throw it on you. It's such a tough dynamic to stop.
Beefeaters a fan unfortunately took a nasty spill here at TD with the wet stands. Hopefully people are being careful, as this is an incomplete pass, and sorry to get distracted there, but I just noticed this is something where we don't necessarily have a whole lot of security or ushers here at TD Stadium this evening, and the stands are wet, and that poor young lady took an awfully mean spill.
Let's hope she's okay. JSR Concrete, another sponsor of the Beefeaters. John, one of the key things in this game, though, that we haven't really talked about, we talked a little bit about it, is the 40-man roster. The Beefs last week had to cut down from 55 to 50, from 50 down to 40, and that's maybe why Tazan Van Bell's playing DB, because you just don't have the depth you normally would have in an OFC conference game.
Now, obviously, Saskatoon had to oblige too before making the almost 2,600 kilometer
But they'd be
trek.
more familiar is what I'm trying to say, right, John? Like, they've been doing it for years, and this is the first time the Beefeaters have had to experience this.
Now, Ron, a flag on this punt.
No yards.
No yards, but he caught it in the air. That should be 15 yards.
Yeah, that's going to be the 15-yard type, because it's caught in the air. It doesn't allow the ball to hit the ground, so that's a 15-yard penalty.
And by my account, that's just the second, if barely the third time, a miscue, an undisciplined play, if you will, by the Hilltops. I mean, for the most part, they've been playing perfect football since the opening kickoff. And like I said, that's about the only third occasion I can think of where I would go, you could make a correction there.
Well, and again, they're like well-disciplined, well-coached team. They execute all facets of the game very, very well, including composure.
I've heard this from head coaches in professional leagues in basketball, hockey, and even baseball, where their team will go on a winning streak, and you're talking about a team that hasn't lost since 2017 in the Hilltops, but they talk about that streak almost being detrimental to their own well-being, knowing that there's more and more pressure to keep winning, there's more and more to keep that zero in the loss column, and on top of this, the coaches have all said the same thing. When they finally do lose, that next practice has a smile on the coach's face, because they can finally go with film and go, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there, and we got to clean this, and that up. Whereas when you're on a winning streak that seems to be going on forever, it seems like players tend to not tune out a coach, but be less receptive to criticism, knowing that, hey, last time I checked, we got this, coach.
Yeah, you can go with that philosophy, but I had the distinct feeling that this team embraces coaching, and where they don't have a problem saying, hey, look, we got to improve on this, we got to improve on this, we got to improve on this. You know, it's a couple of those things that, you know, I think that these guys embrace the culture, and I think these are the type of kids that embrace the streak, saying, you know what, we're not going to be the ones. It's not the pressure. You can either live with the pressure of it, or you can embrace the pressure of it and saying, come on.
And sort of capture the essence or the aura, if you will, of another football dynasty, the New England Patriots, to talk about whether you love or hate to play for them. I heard players that said, well, I love playing for the Patriots. They're serious about football. They're all about winning. And other players saying simply, I didn't have fun when I was there. So sometimes it's not about fun, though, Ronnie. It's about winning championships. And last time I checked, winning championships is pretty fun, too.
Jay and I have talked about this ad nauseum, you know, off the record. There's two types of players in football. There's we guys and there's me guys. This is a team of we guys. We all hold hands. We all come out together. We all grind together. The me guy is the guy that says, I didn't get the ball.
And the networking of this Saskatoon Hilltops program is immaculate when you consider Keegan Dix, who scored that last touchdown in the opening half with 4:36 remaining, comes from Etobicoke, a GTA product playing out in Saskatoon, as the ball will hit the turf, and they're going to just say incomplete pass to bring up third down.
Well, and they had Tazzy Van Bell, I believe it was, on a wheel route coming up as well, and that's where they were looking to go. So they had someone deep. They just couldn't quite get him the ball.
And Jackson brought the funk that time.
Yeah.
Do you think the GTA Grizzlies could have used Keegan Dix, 34 catches, 533 yards, and 5 touchdowns this year? I think
They could have used it. But again, you're talking about a team looking to make it 6 straight national championships. A third down convert attempted by London. The ball is caught. They move it down to the 40. And wow, they're now 2 for 5 in this game on third down converts are the Beefeaters.
Jake Powell, just a great throw, guys.
Yeah, Josh Waller does a nice job of doing the sit-down route. Needed 10 yards, sat down about 13, 14 yards. Made sure you had enough for the first down. And Waller's had himself quietly a really productive game on special teams as well.
After losing the 2012 Gordie Howe Bowl in Saskatoon by a score of 51-7, the Beefeaters almost saw another interception thrown by a quarterback, and that would have been Kirk Morrow in on the action this time. Earlier in the game, we saw Jared Giddings get an INT, and pretty much I think on the first drive of the game, it was Bailey Taylor grabbing an INT off Jake Powell.
That's Jake thrown to his right side, and he gets pressure, and he's just not able to set his feet and drive the football. And otherwise, he had Waller open again, but just a great job from the pressure that created that incompletion. 2nd and
10 from the 40-yard line. 3 targets to the near side. Powell with the pocket collapsing, ranging to his left, throws the ball, takes a hit. Great sportsmanship showed at the end of that one, as picking up the quarterback from the turf was the hitter in Caleb Haight. I love to see that.
Yeah, this is a big hit. Good job wrapping up. Clean tackle as well. One step. It's not a roughing the passer. He doesn't lead with his head. It's good wrap up. Good pressure again by the Hilltops.
I mentioned it though. 2 for 5, I should say, on third down converts. They need to get back to 50% on this one. It's a 3rd and 10 coming up. And once again, going forward are the Beefeaters, throwing caution to the wind. Powell in the pocket to the near side. Pass is caught again at the 25-yard line, being pushed out of bounds is Waller. So once again on third down, they go between Powell and Waller, and once again they move the chains. They're at 50% now, Ron. 3 of 6 while converting on third downs.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
Again, just that out route. You know, he sits down in about 12 or 13 yards of space. It's nothing fancy, but it's effective football.
Powell sets his feet, John, and that's the difference.
Can the Beefeaters finally put a touchdown on the board here in this 4th quarter of play? Powell throwing it to a wide open target at the 20-yard line. Again, the tackle on this play made by Riley Keaton. Take me through this replay, Ron.
Well, this is a route that they've had a lot of success with this year. That crossing or a mesh route. You see that drag coming across the middle. It's in front of the linebackers. It's a 5 or 6 yard gain. It's a really effective play, and it sets up the run that you can do off of this.
Bailey Holmes, as they're officially in the red zone. Powell again going to be sacked back at the 25. And go figure, the second they get the nose of the football within the red zone for the first time on your Saturday evening, a massive sack by the Saskatoon player. And I believe it's 69, Jesse McNabb doing the damage.
Yeah, McNabb does a great job from his tackle position, John. And
Actually, sorry, it's 59, Jacob Uzak.
is it Uzak?
So my apologies.
Well, just Uzak, again, great technique, gets his hands, gets the Beefeaters' hands off of him and does a great job of shedding him.
All right, two strikes. Third strike, we're not going to strike out, though. Tristan Herring, the person that made the tackle on the play. As Powell picks this one off the turf, but then again into a Hilltop sandwich, the second straight sack. Oh, man, the wheels are falling off the wagon, Ron Ferwerda.
Well, this is one of those plays that Saskatoon's turned around and said, we're not giving up the major. We're bringing pressure. We're going with what got us to the dance. We're not giving it up here. And they brought pressure.
I mean, the snap was the problem, though, because if you watch the replay, Ron, there's a guy wide open in the corner, and Jake's looking that way. It's the snap, though, that I think is the issue, and it's too bad that it came down to that.
If you're the Langley Rams, you lost last year in the national final 58-21 to the Saskatoon Hilltops, and you're watching them in the semifinal awaiting the winner of this game, and you're seeing, wow, they're up 44-1 in our semifinal game as Saskatoon sweeps it over to the left side. So, Ron, put yourself in the shoes of the Rams. You actually kind of mentioned it earlier in this broadcast. They're hungry for revenge after losing 58-21 in the national final last year. Freshen their memory banks, ensure not only just the coaching staff, but plenty of players left on that Rams crew as well, eager to try and get some revenge. But again, they're probably watching this broadcast live on CJFL TV, and they're going 44-1. Man, how are we going to take down these guys on November 16th for the 112th edition of the Canadian Bowl?
Well, again, it's the revenge factor that you have to use. You're going to use it. It's us against the world. Nobody expects us to win. The David versus Goliath. You can use any cliche that you want. The thing that I always like to do in a situation like that is you kind of put it out. This is a revenge game. Remember this last year. I want us to embrace that we got our butts handed to us last year, and now we have an opportunity at home to avenge that loss, break their streak, set ourselves up for dominations for years to come.
So it looks like it will be, though. We're 9-20 away from it. A repeat from the 2018 final between the Langley Rams and the Saskatoon Hilltops here in 2019. In fact, these two teams hooked it up in 2014. You could probably guess the result, though. 39-14 in favor of Saskatoon. That was the beginning of their 5-peat. Could be 6-peat after this year, KJ.
Oh, Ron, you can tell your team whatever you want to tell them, but this Hilltop team's got a last year quarterback who I think will have something to say. It'll be interesting to see what happens if, obviously...
And again, they're going to sweep this over to the left side. Plenty of real estate. Oh, my word. 30-plus yards. Breaks off another tackle. Past the 40. Past the 30. Skipping over to the 35-yard line. A shoestring tackle. Finally brings out Jordan Tabin down. And man, Jordan Tabin refused to go down. A guy that only had 113 rushing yards in the regular season picks 30-plus up right here.
He had a 12.6 average, and he just
That's true. Actually, that's a good point. Only on 9 rushing attempts, which equivalates in 12.6. So he averages a first down every time he runs the ball. And he gets about 2 or 3 first downs in one gallop there, Ron.
Yeah, and again, it's not a really difficult play design. It's meant to go against the grain to the short side of the field, and execution. It's been the key word all night.
3 options to the left side. It's another handoff though, and trying to go down the near sidelines, breaking off of a couple tackles. Like the Energizer Bunny just keeps going and going and going, and eventually he'll be hauled down. I think that's Carter McLean getting a rare touch in this game.
Yeah, 30 carries, 186 yards, 6.2 this season, and gets his first down on that run with the second and third effort.
Yeah, so Carter McLean, everybody's getting involved in the action. We saw Turple earlier. We saw just on that previous play Jordan Tabin, and obviously at the helm right now Doug Fleming. And I raised this question earlier, and this is no disrespect to the Beefeaters, as unfortunately there is a London player down on a knee at the 15-yard line. Ron, if Saskatoon had started Douglas, started Turple, started Tabin, I mean, the game would naturally be closer, but by how much?
Not sure it would have been closer, to be honest with you. They're just, it's been a dominant performance. They've had a game plan. They've been able to execute. And again, it's kind of like Oprah Winfrey football right now. You got to carry,
You gotta carry,
you got to carry, you got to catch, you got to catch. You know, getting everybody involved. Put as much on film as you can. Make Langley repair for everything.
Beefeaters were trailing 33-1 at halftime. They're losing this second half of competition 11-0. As you see a couple Beefeaters coming off of the field here.
Yeah, Danny Fitzgerald, one of them. You know, we've mentioned his name a number of times tonight. Great kid. We had the opportunity of coaching. Jay and I had the opportunity of coaching with him in the summer. Fantastic, really good player. Great. He's going to be a great coach one day. The kid's just, you know, he's an energizer bunny. He brings a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. He really is a heart and soul type of player.
First and goal from the 9-yard line as Saskatoon looks to put up even more points on the board. It's a run right up the middle and diving towards the end zone. Touchdown, Saskatoon. Diving his way across the end zone line is Jordan Tabin with the TD run.
Well, a 50-burger hung up on the Beefeaters with 14:50 left in the, or excuse me, 7:19 left.
And a PAT away, Ron, might I add, from matching the exact same amount of offense they put up against the Beefeaters in 2012 in the Gordie Howe Bowl in a 51-7 final.
Well, the difference was, you know, this year they didn't get in the end zone. They conceded the Rouge.
Yeah, the extra point is good.
Yeah.
So Saskatoon holds serve. They got 51 points in 2012. They got 51 points in 2019.
And I had the opportunity to call that Beefeater championship that year on the radio, and I remember that team was Coach Vuvalitis.
Yeah.
They were 20. I think that was the year they were still could play when they were 23 because Tyler Allen was still playing.
Yeah, they were.
So they had an extra age group. So that particular team that year, they were older. This is a young football team right now with a lot of potential. And yeah, it's 50-1, 51-1, whatever the score. It doesn't matter at this point. They got here, and the building, you know, they'll remember this, and they're going to be better for it.
There is a healthy contingency, might I add, though, heading towards the exit doors here at TD Stadium, as I guess 50 points is too many points for some of these fans to endure, and I don't necessarily blame them either on a Saturday evening. 7:19 remains in this game. 7:19 remains from Saskatoon advancing to the national final against the Langley Rams on November 16th. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff on your Saturday for the 2019 Canadian Bowl, the 112th edition, as the Beefeaters bring this one back across the 35-yard line, and the offense will go back to work, Ron.
You know, we talked earlier tonight, John, we were talking about the culture that they had in the prairie provinces for football. That's what, you know, what these Beefeaters are trying to do. They're trying to build a culture. This is a very young team. They're trying to build a winning attitude after season of really getting their butts handed to them by the AKO Fratmen, by the Ottawa Sooners, by the Hamilton Hurricanes. You know, again, this has been a statement year for the Beefeaters. The score it is what it is. You know, it's really it's a celebration for how far this organization has become. You know, again, 3 years ago when Rob Ainen took over as president of the organization, there became a culture change, and Rob and Jen have put so much time and effort into it. You know, hats off, kudos to them. They've done a remarkable job hiring an amazing staff and recruited a great bunch of kids.
And this is a team that was originally founded in 1975, took all the way till 2012 to win their first OFC championship, the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy, and unfortunately lost to Saskatoon in this same semifinal dance. Well, 7 years later, they beat the AKO Fratmen, win their second ever Ted Morris Memorial Trophy, as Powell's trying to go deep, but he throws this one out of bounds down the near sidelines. And my point being, though, it took them 7 years again to get back to this point, and it looks like, again, Saskatoon's going to shut their national glory dreams down here in the semifinals. But my point being, you mentioned that culture change, that shift of emotions here in London. It's safe to say it's not going to take them another 7 years to get back to this point.
No, I think this is a young enough team. It's got a nucleus. They're now the defending Ontario champions. You know, they obviously need to take it to the next level. to compete on the national level, but the Beefeaters have really arrived here in Ontario and established themselves as an up-and-coming power.
Another
in the
attempted
CJFL
third
football.
down conversion, incomplete pass at the ankles of Taz Van Bell, the intended target, who is being watched by Evan Matika. And that will be another turnover on downs. The Hilltops will take over at the Beefeaters 41-yard line.
We talk about what do we mean by this is a young Beefeater team? Jake Powell, starting quarterback, first-year player. Tazzy Van Bell, star player, first-year player. Just two of the offensive leaders. These guys are going to be back for 2 or 3 more years in this organization.
And you mentioned, though, the bottom bricks of this pyramid to build on. Nobody can take away the fact that they're the 2019 OFC champions and the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy is theirs. Nobody can take away the fact that they made it all the way to the national semifinal. And again, nobody can take the fact away that they had a plethora of OFC All-Stars. Matt Betancourt and George Panagiotopoulos at the offensive line. Tazzy Van Bell, you just mentioned, from the running back position. Spencer Foster, and then on the defensive side, Soren Halschmidt, as well as Tanner Glasgow Caldewalder. They also had an OFC Statistical Award winner, and Danny Byron with his rushing category. And Matt Betancourt wasn't just an all-star, he won an OFC award for being the Offensive Lineman of the Year.
Yeah, and all Canadian, and a kid, who has a lot of experience playing the game, has a Vanier Cup ring under his belt from Western.
Almost intercepted by the Beefeaters, and
Murray Bishop, man, that would have been a nice... He might have been gone.
it would have been something. With 4:30 remaining in this game, as a London fan at this point, it would have been something,
And
KJ.
there's another young guy, you're calling the game the way you see it, right, John? And they make mistakes. But again, look at this kid. I guarantee you next year that's a pick 6. Guaranteed. You watch it, mark my words.
And again, with a third down coming up here, looks like the Hilltops going to boot this one right back into Beefeaters' possession. 2 punt returners line back evenly at the 10-yard line. This one will be punted away from the 50-yard line. A healthy one all the way down to the 13-yard line. Enough yards given by Saskatoon, and they close up the gap early as the returner's lucky to get back up to the 20-yard line. And Ron, before I hand it back over to you with 4 minutes remaining in this game, up by 50 points. Again, a little bit of a history lesson. Get out your notebooks, Ron. I'm going to test for you on this after the game. This was a team that was originally founded in 1921 as a senior team in the Saskatchewan Rugby Football Union. That all the way, unfortunately got cut shy due to a thing called World War II. The team had to reorganize after World War II in 1947. And since 1953, the Hilltops have won 21 championships. That's the most of any CJFL program out there. They've won 5 straight Canadian Bowls. No team has won more than 3 prior to the Hilltops, who have done that, on 4 separate occasions now.
Yeah, and again, the dominance of this program, the dominance of the culture, if you look in the mirror, this is what you want to be. This is the type of team that you want to be. They played with discipline, they played with composure, they played well across all 3 facets of the game, and it's been a wonderful thing. Going back to another point about the culture change that we're seeing in the Beefeaters, again, let's give credit where credit is due. They went into Hamilton, okay? A place that they have never had success.
After losing to Hamilton in the opening week of competition, 1916.
Yeah, again, and went into Hamilton and won in what many people said was an upset. Won twice.
Beat Hamilton twice this year.
Yeah, went into Windsor, a place where traditionally London always struggles with. As someone who has traveled to Windsor on a Friday night with 13:48 left to play in a game, it's a tough place to win. But they did it. They went on the road twice to their biggest rivals in the province, and they established themselves and said, this is our yard now. You guys now need to come to us. And again, it's a culture change. It's a mentality thing. It's a slow process, but it starts with the young levels, and it builds up from there. Next year, when they hit the next group of young kids in, these guys who are getting this experience in this game are going to be able to say, I was in that game. I know we didn't do it, but I know how hard we had to work to get there. Now we know how much harder we have to work to get to the next level.
We hit the 3-minute warning here in the CJFL semi-final As just 2:30 aware, the Saskatoon Hilltops are meeting up against the Langley Rams for a second straight year in the CGFL National Championship, known as the Canadian Bowl, in the 112th edition, which just shows you the history of Canadian junior football and the fact that Saskatoon 21 championships, the most of any program. As take me through this replay, KJ.
Joey Cortez. This is another young guy. Made a couple mistakes, made a lot of big plays tonight. And there you see him on special teams, just like a Sikh missile, just getting down there and making a great play.
Again, the Hilltops started off the regular season in the PFC with three straight road victories against Winnipeg, the Rifles, the Regina Thunder in that tight 24-22 win against the Edmonton Huskies. They would win the next 2 games at home against the Regina Thunder, including a 53-6 clobbering of the Calgary Colts. They would go back on the road to Edmonton, but not to face against the Huskies, against the Wildcats, where they beat the Edmonton Wildcats 38-10. Another 2 stints at home against the Winnipeg Rifles and the Edmonton Wildcats resulted in a 49-22 and 48-8 finals respectively. Then you go into the postseason, where Saskatoon got a double dose of Edmonton. They got the Wildcats in the semifinals, where they prevailed 31-7 thanks to Ben Abrooks' 2 touchdowns, 153 rushing yards, Tyler Herman going 10 of 17 passing for 2 touchdowns. Oh yeah, and Ryan Clare going 1 for 1 on the field goal, plus having 2 touchdowns caught in that game. Then they go to, play against the Huskies of Edmonton, and they win 30-14. Again, Ben Abrook having a massive day at the office, 246 rushing yards on a record 44 carries for 2 TDs. Tyler Herman went 8 of 17 passing on that day. Not the greatest day in the office, with 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown thrown for 124 yards. And yet, Ron, they won that championship dance easily, 30-14. And I don't know why, but I just assumed that this was going to be a game that was going to come down to the wire. At least a touchdown or 2, but yet a 50-point differential on the board with 2:10 remaining on the clock.
The ability to make a play and capitalize on a small error is the difference in this game. When they decided, okay, we can throw the ball, they went after it, and it was literally almost intercepted twice, but they were caught for big gains, caught for a touchdown. Again, it's that little bit off. They're just a half a step a little bit slower, half a step behind against a very good, well-coached, disciplined organization.
And it's Eric Bassler, the banged-up Beefeater, that walks off on his own accord and is sitting down with his teammates, so that's a good sign. With less than 2 minutes remaining in this game, the Hilltops go back to the run, and they need just about 5 yards on this play. They're going to gain about 4 to bring up 3rd down, and I'd imagine with a 50-point lead, you just kick it right back to the Beefeaters here, KJ.
Yeah, or if you have your field goal kicker's pretty good, this is a good opportunity to try a long
That's
field goal.
actually a very good point, because in the
That's a
national
cold
final,
Yeah, you might have to.
you might have to. That's
Yeah.
right. As the Langley
They're going
Rams,
to punt, I think.
the Langley Rams again await the Saskatoon Hilltops in a rematch of the 2018 national final in the CGFL, which saw the Hilltops prevail 58-21. Another punt from the Hilltops coming back at the Beefeaters' 50-yard line. With about 1 minute remaining in this game, the Beefeaters will have one last chance to get their first touchdown of this semifinal competition. This one's booted all the way down to the 10-yard line, bobbled by the returner, and recovered by the Hilltops. Man, oh man, with 54 seconds left, buy a lottery ticket before you go back to Saskatoon, because I think the Hilltops aren't just good, Ron. They're lucky, too.
Well, a little bit lucky, a little bit good, a little bit of let's give somebody else a rep back there as a punt returner, someone who's not really used to it again.
Ethan McKaig is the fumble recovery.
Yeah, and it was Noel on the drop. You know what? I think you're going to see
They're gonna
this
take a
team
knee.
that's classy. They're going to take a knee, and wow, congratulations to the Hilltops.
The Hilltops has not lost the game since the mid-PFC 2017 season, when they lost 29-26 against the Regina Thunder. And in 2012, if you recall, they beat these London Beefeaters in their home barn, though, mind you, 51-7 for the Gordie Howe Bowl. Well, after winning their second ever Ted Morris Memorial Trophy since 1975, the Beefeaters fall to a similar fate here on your Saturday evening, as it is the Saskatoon Hilltops prevailing by 50 points. They will take on the Langley Rams. on November 16th in BC with a 1 p.m. kickoff in the 112th edition of the Canadian Bowl. Victory formation, one more knee by the Hilltops, and they have done it. A 50-point victory for Saskatoon prevails them off to the national final. The hunt for the six-peat continues for this domination dynasty known as the Hilltops, and it'll be a rematch, Ron Forwerda, of last year's final, 2018 in the CJFL National Championship, which was a 58-21 final for these Hilltops over the Rams. And if you're the Rams, you're hoping for a different fate on November 16th on the West Coast.
Yeah, you're hoping for a different fate, but let's call the spade the spade. We haven't seen Langley. We don't know how good they are. We don't know this.
Well, we do know this much: they won the BCFC championship, and you can't be a slouch to do that.
No, and absolutely not. And again, but this is a different level organization, the Saskatoon team. The value, the culture that they have, and everything else in here. It really is. It was an honor to watch this team play, and again to call this game. Of course, with Jay and Johnny, yourself, and the Melroses. The hard work behind the scenes to do this. This was a great opportunity for me. It was an absolute thrill. I've loved it, and I would love to see this type of game hosted here again. Maybe even a national final being held by the Ontario team one of these days.
As we see the greatest line in all of sports form at midfield here at TD Stadium, we go to the German-Canadian club box score as I try and give you a recap of how we got to this 50-point differential. It all started with a Ryan Kleider 27-yard field goal, followed up by the first touchdown of the game on the rush play from Ben Abrook, the bell cow for Saskatoon, to make it a 10-0 game. Looked like the Beefeaters are going to finally get involved in this contest with a 30-yard field goal attempt, down 10-0 from Centino. Unfortunately, he missed wide right, and as a result, it was a rouge conceded by Saskatoon to make it a 10-1 game. And then all of a sudden, Tyler Herman broke out the python he calls a right arm, a 75-yard TD hookup to Connor Graham, a 50-yard hookup to Connor Graham, a 10-yard pass to Keegan Dix to send us in to the halftime break with a 33-1 scoreboard. Then Ryan Kleider starts off the second half just like he started off the game, hitting a field goal, this time from 17 yards out. Connor Graham would pick up his third touchdown of the game, but this time from Doug Fleming, QB2 of Saskatoon, and Jordan Tabin would get a late TD run to make it a 51-1 final. The Saskatoon Hilltops are off to the CJFL final against the Langley Rams on November 16th. And if you're a London Beefeaters fan or a Beefeater in general, let's eat. Hold your head up high. This is a team that went 5-2 during the OFC regular season. Those two losses to Hamilton and Windsor were avenged in the OFC playoffs, where they beat both those teams in their barns respectively to win the Ted Morris Memorial Trophy. But unfortunately, Ron Forwerda, much like we saw in 2012 in Saskatoon in that Gordie Howe Bowl in a 51-7 final, 51-1 is the final in London 7 years later.
Yeah, and again, as we're seeing the championship trophy being presented there to the national semi-final champion Saskatoon Hilltops, it really was from the opening whistle. What kind of caught my attention early in this game was on the third down where they went for it, and the speed that they went after that fake field goal and got the first down. I myself kind of went, oh wow. And it was it was a tone setter. It was an attitude and a mentality that they came in. This is a business game. We're going to dominate this game in all facets of the game, and truly they did.
The Gordie Howe Bowl in 2019 belongs yet again to the blue and gold of the Saskatoon Hilltops. Congratulations as the hunt for the six-peat continues. After winning the first championship in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and last year against the Rams of Langley in 18. They're going for it here in 2019. And if they beat the Rams in back-to-back CJFL championships, Coach KJ Kenme, that would be nine championships in a decade. 9 championships in 10 years. I can't think of any other sport, maybe maybe squash or curling where I've ever seen or heard of a team with that sort of domination.
Laval in the Quebec League.
They've won 10, though, over the course of, I think, 20-plus years. This is 9 in
Tougher
10
league,
years.
though. Tougher league. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying. All I'm saying, John, is I'm drawing some comparisons.
Yeah, you're throwing pears into my banana pie, and I don't like it.
I'm trying
We
some
love
comparisons to the product of what we've seen here today.
But for the Beefeaters, again, nobody can take away the fact that they are the Ted Morris Memorial Champions, and they will go into the 2020 season as the defending OFC champions. But again, for the entire crew here at TD Stadium, including our camera people, Alex Stoddard and Drew Caspi, our technical producer, directors, and executives, and Stephanie and Adam Melrose, our Presidente and coach and color commentator, KJ Kedemi, my main man, Ron Forwerda. I am John Urban, a 51-1 final for the Saskatoon Hilltops as they continue their domination here in 2019 in the CJFL. And if you're the Langley Rams, it's going to be a tough hill to climb, a tough hill to top, if you will, against Saskatoon on November 16th. For the rest of the crew, I'm Johnny Yu from TD Stadium. We bid you adieu.